All right. Good night, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world watching GameFace right now. We definitely appreciate it. This is episode 40, 100% malt liquor free. Unfortunately. We do have some beer in the fridge. We can crack a Corona. I feel like a Corona is the antithesis of malt liquor.
Yeah.
It's like the easiest drinking beer versus the most difficult to drink beer.
You can put a lime in either one, though.
Yeah. You'd have to drink about half a case of Corona to get the same impact that you get from like 2 40s. So no 40s for us tonight on the show, but we do have great topics for you guys tonight. Just to kick things off, there's a couple little things we want. It's not going to be as long an intro as we had last week, which ended up being, our intro last week ended up being about the length of most other video casts.
Yeah. We don't skimp.
We sure don't, man. You definitely get your money's worth with GameFace. So one of the first things we want to talk about that we don't really want to dedicate a whole topic to is this week, 2 more publishers bailed on E3.
Yeah, and not ones I would have expected.
No.
I mean, we already had EA and Activision, and now Wargaming and Disney?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say... Well, here's an anecdote for you. I didn't know what Wargaming was the first time I saw him at E3. All I know is that like this huge booth appeared, and I was like, what the hell is wargaming.net? And it was for like World of Tanks whatever.
They were right in front of the G4 booth when they first showed up. And so in the background of every single one of our live broadcast shots was this giant World of Tanks.
Yeah.
And the whole time we're like, World of Tanks? Like, that's World of Warcraft with tanks? Like, what do you do? And like, we thought it was like the dumbest imaginable name.
Well, that night I went home and I Googled it and I was like, oh, wow.
Well, dude, you know what? Like, at the end, because they were like in the background of our shot with like all this stuff, like at the end of the show, like they came over and brought us like all these remote controlled tanks to say, sorry if we got in the way of your shot all the time. And like,
but thank you for all that
thanks for all the free marketing. Yeah. And we're like, oh, okay, I don't know about the game because it was like still in beta at that point. But like, well, I don't know about the game, but like they gave us free tanks, so that's cool, you know. So it's funny to have seen them like start at this like little booth behind us that we're like, who the fuck is that? And now they're like they're the biggest thing in the world. You know,
now they have World of Warships and
World of Warships and World of Warplanes and I mean their booth has become like I love their booth design.
It was really nice.
All the recent years, like
it was huge.
The Wargaming, like just net over the whole thing, and like just. You can just walk in whenever, almost at all times. I mean, they were big enough that everyone who's interested could get in and play their stuff, which is like, that's rare at E3.
Yeah, really. For sure. And then, then them and Disney both have bailed on the show. Now, one thing I would say is like, really neither publisher has anything to show.
True. I mean, like, it's not like you have to get people's hands on the betas for more World of whatever.
Right.
And Disney Interactive... I mean, there's no new Disney Infinity this year. There's no new Star Wars game this year. Like,
I wonder if Disney Infinity will come back.
I don't know.
Or if they'll just keep releasing just DLC for 3.0.
I think 3.0 is in a place where you could just keep doing DLC.
For this generation, probably.
Yeah. Like, I don't see...
Make it like a platform and...
Make it a full... Because it's very robust right now, especially in terms of creation tools and, like... I think just release like new Star Wars stuff and new Marvel stuff.
I mean,
as
the graphics engine's good enough.
Yeah.
Like, does it really matter if they don't really need to make another base game?
I think the play sets on 3.0 feel like a real game, for like a B-tier game for the most part. At least it feels like kind of on par with like Lego. Mm-hmm. So I think that's good enough if they keep making them more full-featured. But they don't really have... I mean, I guess you could say they have Kingdom Hearts, but Square is the one that shows that off, so even though Disney owns all that. Yep.
Did you, by any chance, get to look at the E3 floor plan that they released this week?
No.
Oh, my gosh. Mm-hmm. They didn't really fill EA or Activision spaces with, like, anything. They're just huge, gaping holes in the floor plan now.
That's gonna be weird because that's a whole that's
the whole
big
third
chunk in the front
of the
third
one
of
hall.
South Hall. I think, a
whole third of it. Yeah, it's just empty.
So you're just gonna walk in and there's nothing there.
And that is one of the doors you do walk into. Like you literally would use to walk into the show, and EA's just boom, like right in your face. And they have this huge like horseshoe-shaped booth with a massive screen that arches all the way around it. Like that's gone.
Yeah,
it'll be crazy, man. I mean, it really looks like E3 is headed right for this cycle again, because this happened before. Like, it got really big, publishers complained, And then, like, an EA executive went to the show, was embarrassed by the show, said this isn't the way our industry should be represented as its flagship conference. And so immediately everyone was like, you're right. And then they reverted back. It was smaller at first. I think when they started E3 again, it was like 15,000 people or something.
Yeah, very small.
And then it's crept up again. And now last year it was almost back to where it was whenever they decided to cut the cord the last time. So it looks like this is just a cyclical thing that's just going to keep happening. They're going to, it's too big. They're going to cut it down. It'll be a joke. Some publisher will complain. It's embarrassing. They'll start ticking it back up. It just seems like
what's embarrassing about it is what I don't get. It's like, look how many people are interested.
No, EA was saying was embarrassed when it got small. Because they went to the show and their exec was like, this is our flagship.
Yeah.
It was pretty sad.
It was very weird.
E for All was pathetic, which was like its own separate thing. But the year that they did it in Santa Monica, they had us in this weird airplane hangar where they had rolled in this really thick shag carpeting to I stumbled it and almost fell down.
Yep.
It was ghetto.
They had maybe a dozen kiosk games set up down the row of that shag carpeting, and that was it. There was no one in there.
The booths were the size of the GameFace table.
Yeah,
that's nothing. How it was. Literally, Sega had one spindle with TVs all the way around it, and then that was it. That was their booth. And so that's what EA flipped out over and was like, this isn't good enough.
And you went in and you looked and it was there was one reporter in a sport coat looking at one thing at each booth, and
it was
nothing.
Sad.
It was not because everyone was doing meetings and interviews off-site at the various hotels, which was a lot of fun to drive to over and over. Oh my god,
it sucked.
We couldn't get anywhere.
See, here's the thing, so people are like, well, EA's having this event. It's right off the convention center. Sure, it is, and it probably will take us 10 minutes to walk there. Well, more than that when you count getting through the convention center, getting outside, waiting for traffic. It'll take you 20...
Well, that road will be closed, so it'll be even less than that. You just run across the street. It'll be real fast. Now, there's a door that leads right to it.
Right. Basically. So right now, it's not that big a deal. But if more publishers start doing this and start leaving, even if there were just
where's Activision going to be?
Right.
Where are they? What hotel are we going to have to Uber over to see that?
And look, Wargaming's going to be there, and they're going to try to get you to do appointments, and they're probably going to rent some hotel suite at the Figueroa or whatever, which is a couple blocks. But the more publishers that start doing this, E3 starts to turn into a disaster, pretty much. And so
I think the Fig's actually under renovation this year.
Oh, you're right. I don't think you can even go there for E3, which is the watering hole at E3. Everyone goes there to drink.
Yeah, Hotel Figueroa is that's what Fig is named after, I think.
Next year, if any of you guys are in LA during E3 and you want to meet a bunch of game developers, I probably shouldn't be telling you this.
You're giving away the secrets.
If you want to meet a bunch of game developers, just go to the Hotel Figueroa bar after E3, and you can meet a bunch of people. Just don't bother them and don't tell them I told you that. So.
And you'll definitely see me because that's where I go.
You'll see both.
There have been last days of E3 where Sessler and I have gone there. It's 2 p.m. We're is it Fig time? Yeah, we're going.
And then you don't leave there till 8.
No,
and you're a mess.
You leave there at 8 to go to one of the parties, and then you come back at 11, and everyone's still there.
And then you end up Ubering home and spending $60 to get home because you're too drunk. So. But anyway,
good times.
Yeah, it is a good time.
It's all business. It's totally very serious.
But yeah, it does appear as if E3 is going through another transition. The thing that's different this time, obviously, is the whole YouTuber or Twitch thing. So maybe it doesn't cycle back around unless E3 decides it's going to start letting the public have its day, do the Saturday,
or letting publishers call the shots, because I think that's what's at the heart of this is as they would call it, influencers. And I think each company has each publisher has a different idea of which influencers are their influencers.
Yeah.
So they want, Activision wants these people in.
Each publisher got 100 passes to give away to their influencers.
But now they're starting to see that there's some crossover, that there's, and basically, I think either the ESA stops kind of being as draconian as they are over who qualifies as media, or in terms of these influencers on YouTube and Twitch, or as we're seeing, the publisher are going to take their ball and go across the street. They're not going home, but they're going across the street.
I think ESA is doing it right in that they're giving the publishers the passes and letting the publishers sort it out. Because imagine if you're the ESA and you have to vet thousands and thousands of YouTube channels. Yeah. Because if you open it up to YouTube channels, they're all going to apply. You will literally have you already have a ton of work to get through just for the legitimate press and industry. You tack on another 10,000 people trying to get in the show. it wouldn't work.
Well, it's like
that's why you just open it up for the public for a Saturday.
Well, I think even Thursday, because I don't.
Thursday's so dead.
Well, because now that you can't transfer badges and they check ID all the time, Thursday last year was so empty. It looked like setup hour.
I got so much work done though on that day, like literally, and it's a shorter day. It ends at like 4 o'clock or whatever. It's like a shorter day than the other days. But I literally got in there like as soon as the doors opened, and I got almost everything done that I needed to do on the show floor in like 4 hours.
Yeah, but it's like
I played everything I wanted to. I shot everything we needed to shoot.
It was super nice, but like it looks bad.
It does,
if you're there to hype stuff and like. I mean, I was walking by booths, and people were like, you want to play it? You want to come? I've never seen that at E3.
Yeah.
Like, people are like asking you to come in and play something. Like,
they should probably push it to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or even just do Thursday, Friday, and then open up Saturday to the public. Let them come in and pay maybe the money that you generate from people paying to get in. You cut the publishers a break on the booth costs, and you sort of augment the money that you were making from the publishers for their booths with the money from the gate sales, so that the publishers aren't angry that you're charging them this crazy rate for floor space. Like, there's a way that they can do it to keep it relevant to the current sort of trends in the industry. So hopefully they'll look into that and they'll try to change it, because I would really hate to see E3 go back down that path again where it becomes this like circus sideshow. I
mean, it's E3's got to mutate with the times, basically, and it hasn't yet. So. You know,
it's an old organization. There's a lot of old people running the ESA, folks. Like,
it's probably a positive thing in the end that EA and Activision are kind of taking the forefront and like, hey, things are changing and we need to change with it. And if ESA is not going to listen, they're going to, force the issue.
It's the old evolve or die mantra, and E3 is going to have to deal with it just like Sifted has. And
E3 evolve or die.
Yeah, exactly. So
save that for be a topic when they change everything.
Oh, yeah. All right, that's our intro, much shorter than last week. Let's get to the Big Six. So some bad news today. Well, I guess depending on your or not today, but this week, depending on your perspective, Microsoft canceled Fable Legends and eventually are going to shutter Lionhead Studios.
Kind of out of nowhere.
Really out of nowhere, because literally just last week, there were like 2 brand new trailers released for Fable Legends. So obviously Lionhead knew nothing, because they do put out like their own trailers on their own YouTube channel. Like, they rarely ended up making it to Microsoft's YouTube channel, which maybe, in hindsight, should have been a red flag that I picked up on while curating for the site. I should have noticed that, hey, why doesn't Microsoft publish the Fable Legends trailers on its YouTube channel? But, so yeah, I mean, to me, this came out of nowhere. Obviously, I wouldn't know if I would call Lionhead a legendary developer. It's certainly made some excellent games. It's made some disappointing games.
I don't know about legendary in terms of like all of its lineup, but I mean, it has made legendary games. It has made games that changed everything. Populous changed everything to a lot. That was kind of created the God game, basically. I mean, that was its early days were amazing. I guess that was Bullfrog, but that pedigree is still there, and I like a lot of Lionhead stuff. I like the Fable games.
I liked Lionhead stuff up until Fable 3 was the last game I really liked that they made.
Well, what else have they made? Fable Journey.
Yeah, which was that god-awful Kinect game on rails.
Yep, and I think that's
it. It was literally a disaster.
Did they make anything else after that? I don't think they did.
No, I think you're right.
They moved right on to Fable Legends and then
after that.
That's because that thing's been in development for like 3 years.
I mean, essentially what happened was Molyneux left.
In 2012, yeah.
And then suddenly they were just handed these god-awful projects to work on.
Yeah, and everybody kept asking, why not Fable 4?
Yeah. And so here's the real question that probably people care about more than anything is, like, what happens to Fable?
It's a good question. I don't think Microsoft will just throw that IP in the trash. I think you hand that to someone else who has another idea for it.
Or, I think people would be okay with just another Fable game.
True, but I think the thing about Fable is, like, Fable's always had a lot of potential that it never quite lived up to.
Yeah.
And I think if you hand it to, I think it's right there. I think a lot of the promise of Fable could be realized in this generation, because a lot of that stuff that it was sort of ahead of its time on has been done now. In a different and sometimes better way. So I think you can probably make a really kick-ass
Fable game where an
Fable
acorn turns into a tree.
Well, they did that sort of in Fable 3 in a really roundabout way, but like
But it wasn't dynamic like the way it was supposed to be. It was just like a canned thing.
But at the same, on one hand, it's like, yeah, that's a good example of like, developer promises that never come to fruition. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to fucking watch a tree grow. Like, who cares? Like, it's like a cool concept that like probably didn't make it into the game because it was useless in a gameplay perspective.
I don't know. I think it's kind of cool if you had a tree planted next to your like house in the overworld or whatever, and when you came back to your house every 5 or 6 hours, the tree had grown a little bit, and maybe the fruit grows on it that becomes magical fruit that can help you in your. I mean, there's cool ways you can do it.
Well, I think
I don't want to debate growing trees in video.
I think you might want to check out a game called Animal Crossing.
Yeah. Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, that's a good point. So, yeah, I mean. I think the big stunner for me is that, like you said, Fable Legends in development for like 3 or 4 years.
And like, I mean, it's done betas and closed betas, and like, I mean, they're refunding the money. You could spend real money in the beta, and they're refunding that, like, thankfully. But like, the public has played it under NDA, but like people outside of Microsoft have played this game extensively.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they're keeping the beta open until April or something like that, so people can keep playing it. I don't know, Matt, that I've ever seen, 1, a game in development this long, but 2, a game that was shown several times, showed very well, showed a lot of promise, looks extremely polished.
And showed very prominently.
Yeah, people have played the beta. There's been like floor demos at trade shows. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a game this far along and seemingly so close to being finished, canceled.
I can't think of another example, really.
None.
The only other one I can think of is, and I can't remember its name, but it was the plane combat game for the Dreamcast that Sega canceled because of 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only, because that game was basically done.
Those were extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing. That one, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
This one, it's like, Like, I mean, I guess maybe because it's a free-to-play online game, like, it didn't make sense to spend the money on the servers and the upkeep and
I mean, was the response to the beta that bad? I mean, that's the only thing I can figure is that maybe the user base in the beta had just dwindled to nothing and they just thought it didn't have the hook that kept people engaged enough. Because, look, that's the thing. Like, that's why League of Legends works. People want to keep playing it every day.
But then to also close Lionhead
on
top of that is like...
Well, I mean, think about it, Matt. If you gave a studio 3 or 4 years to work on a game, and God knows how much money they've spent on that game, developing it, and, like, you're looking at it, I mean, it was just delayed, and we were shocked at that delay, and if Microsoft is now looking at it and like, well... we're probably going to have to delay it again. That was probably just the last straw. They're like, we can't keep stringing it out like this. But
I mean, I guess you can't have sacred cows in development business.
And again, like, Molyneux's gone, so there's some cachet lost with the studio. There's not going to be a ton of fan outcry because Molyneux's not a part of it anymore. Although at this point, Molyneux's reputation is so tarnished that I don't even know if it would happen with him. But, people kind of had that personal connection with Molyneux. Because, look, he's a charismatic guy. He's a good guy if you know him personally. Like, I always loved interviewing the guy. He's really smart, really interesting. It's up for debate whether you feel like he's been manipulative or deceptive in the past. Some would say yes, some would say no. But you don't really have that emotional attachment to the game like you might have had if Molyneux was still working on it. So I feel like it was easier maybe for Microsoft to be like, we can let this go and not worry about too much of a backlash. But look, this was also one of their big exclusives, man. Like, for a system that needs all the exclusives it can get, like...
And there's nothing else in this space for them right now.
It just is mind-boggling. Something had to have happened. I mean...
Sounds like we got to go to Guilford and investigate.
Yeah, sleepy little town. But I was really, really shocked by this. And you're right. I was even more shocked. I was actually more shocked that they canceled Fable Legends. I could see them, because this happens all the time, put the game out, then dissolve the studio. Or just keep a skeleton crew to work on DLC and stuff like that, or bring that stuff in-house. But not releasing the game and not getting any return on your investment whatsoever.
Which had to be a sizable one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been in development 3 or 4 years. They've probably spent close to $100 million on this game at this point, between marketing, and if you start adding up all the times they've flown people around the world to promote the game, and, like, the servers for the beta that's been running for, like, ever. Like... And I just really wanted to play the game. I think more importantly, like, I thought it was a really unique idea. I had played it at E3. I had fun with it. Like...
Like we just talked about it in terms of like that Wii U game that never happened, where like the asymmetrical thing where someone's like the dungeon master.
Oh, and somebody actually mentioned in the comments for the show last week, it was called Killer Freaks from Outer Space. That was what it was originally called by Ubisoft. So thanks for that, by the way. But you're right. Yeah, maybe asymmetrical multiplayer just isn't made for this world.
It works in board games all the time.
Yeah.
I got like 3 of them at home. If you want to play that gameplay, like I got it. We'll do it. We'll play some Descent.
I will say one thing about Fable Legends, I do not think there has been a better looking game canceled, ever. As far as just technically and graphically, I mean, it's a gorgeous game. Like, the amount of work that has gone into this thing to just kill it, like, it's a
shame people will never see it.
You almost feel like someone from Lionhead, like, slept with someone's wife who works at Micro. Like, it seems so absurd that it almost feels like it has to be something that extreme that would cause this.
Like, how bad could this be that, like, Fable The Journey gets released and this doesn't?
Exactly. I mean, that game was straight up broken and didn't work. Yeah. Like, and look, the Kinect, it was done by then. Like, Microsoft knew it wasn't going to succeed and work, so I don't know, man. I was really, really shocked.
It's a shame we didn't get this and they didn't cancel The Journey.
Yeah, exactly. Why they made them, that was actually the death of Lionhead, was making them work on that god-awful Kinect game for like 2 years or however long they worked.
I think a lot of places can say that.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing, too, that kind of happened this week. Like, Microsoft cleaned up its Microsoft Studios website, and so they deleted, like, the logo for Lionhead off of it. It was, like, a page of all their developers.
And what was the other one was it Press Play?
Yeah, there was actually several, but I think Microsoft came out, like, later in the day and said, no, some of those teams hadn't really been assigned specific projects, and they've been kind of rolled into other teams at Microsoft. So, look, I don't know if Microsoft's full of crap and, like... they're just giving excuses, or if those people really were rolled into other teams. But yeah, I mean, it deleted several studios off of its official Microsoft Studios website. So things are looking real funky in Microsoft land right now. Some of the deals and there's deals right now on the Sifted homepage where you can get an Xbox One with like $50 off and like 2 free games, and like it's starting to seem like retailers are starting to get a little desperate.
Starting to feel a little liquidator a little bit. Liquidation.
Yeah, and look, that's the second deal like that has come across Sifted in the last week.
And it's March.
Right.
Like, it's not like holiday time, like it's run up to Black Friday or something. It's just like people want these things out of their stores.
And then with the whole Xbox One to PC debacle that's been going on over the last week, and God, there's been so many editorials written about that in the last 7 days.
And the constant trying to lock people into Windows 10.
Yeah.
And now the question of whether you're even going to be able to use like the cross-app features if you're not in the App Store on Windows 10. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Like,
Microsoft's been doing a lot of damage control over the last 3 weeks, really.
And it really seems to be that thing again, where it's like you know how they go through that cycle. They've gone through that cycle probably 3 or 4 times since we've been in the industry, where like Microsoft doesn't give a shit about PC games, and then all of a sudden they do, and they do all this stuff, and they super get into it, and they have this whole lineup, and everything, and then everything comes out, and everyone's like, okay, Vanguard, great, what? I don't know. And then like they stop, like, oh, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And then like a few years later, they get interested again. And every time it happens, they do something weird, like games for Windows Live.
Yeah.
Or in this case, I guess, locking you into Windows 10, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And like, I just don't understand internally how like anyone sells them again. Like, hey, what if we try to like control PC gaming again? That always works out well, right? It's like nobody liked games for Windows Live. So why would you try to like lock people in again?
And then, like, last week they had their Xbox Spring Showcase event. Did you know they even had it?
No.
Exactly. The only game that they really covered there was Quantum Break. Like, there was new gameplay and trailers that came out for that game, but there was nothing else. Like, they just don't
have... That game out yet?
No, it doesn't come out for a while.
I don't even know what... I lost that game somewhere. Like,
no, it comes out in April, I think, like early April.
Oh, that's okay.
So it's not far away. But, yeah, I mean, there was no story coming out of that event. And, I mean... We're going to talk in a little bit about Nintendo's latest Direct, which was all games coming in the spring or early summer. And, we've been giving Nintendo a lot of flack about 2016, saying there's not much coming. Well, you could compare...
They've got an actual lineup, whereas Microsoft has what would probably be termed a duo.
Yeah, exactly. You compare their Q2 to Microsoft's, and they're like mopping the floor with Microsoft. So... I don't know what's going on, man, with Microsoft.
It sounds like there's a real pivot happening internally that we're just
that
not...
they just haven't messaged yet. Like, I don't
E3,
know. People...
E3 is going to be interesting. I wonder if like we'll get some clarity on that.
I wonder too how bad Microsoft can get its butt kicked before the big wigs start cleaning house.
Yeah.
Start looking to replace people. Like, look, everyone loves Phil Spencer, and I feel like he's done a great job. And maybe all this PC stuff isn't even his doing, although he did kind of bring it up for the first time himself and say that was sort of something he was concentrating on. I mean,
I don't know the timeline. I mean, I'm just wondering, like, you came wrong-footed out of the gate with the Xbox One because you'd handed it to non-game people to design, basically, especially the OS. The OS was clearly made by people that never touched a video game on that system because none of it worked for a gaming purpose for the most part. And you're already like kind of, off kilter because you came out with that whole DRM strategy and everybody lost their minds, and then Sony fed you your own lunch at that E3 press conference, which is one of the biggest mic drop moments in the history of that convention.
Yeah.
Man, like I know a lot of people watched that live where they announced that there would be no DRM on the PS4, but like you don't understand how loud it was in there. That only the 2004 reveal of Twilight Princess was a bigger pop in the crowd.
It's so stupid too. Like the fact that Microsoft ever thought that was a good idea. Look, of course Sony's not going to do it because Sony's not that stupid.
Yeah.
Like it was a no-brainer.
I mean, Sony had that stuff in play. They had that ready to go.
I'll put it to you this way.
But then everyone reacted the way they did, and you'd have to be a complete moron.
I'll put it to you this way. When Sony originally worked on the plan for that press conference, I can guarantee you there was no mention of DRM anywhere in that press conference. Like, they were not going to just mention, like, if Microsoft didn't have it, they were going to be like, we don't have it either. Like, no one would have mentioned it. It's only because Microsoft said they were going to have it that all of a sudden Sony's like, well, we're going to respond.
Well, Sony had the same plan ready to go, but the night
got
before in the hotel room, they decided, like, we're just going to, that's where that video they put up of them saying, like, no, they're in a hotel room with a camera phone, like, just doing that the night before the conference because they decided we're not only not going to do what, go through with this plan, but we are going to stick it to Microsoft in our press conference on it. And it was great.
They did. And the thing about this whole console race war, or whatever the heck you want to call it, is that at first it was like, look, Sony was winning, but it was kind of close, and like I don't think anyone was all that surprised that Sony was winning, but Microsoft was game at first. But now it's just really getting to the point where it's just like a straight up ass kicking.
Well, you're just like, I still have a lot of friends who still play everything on Xbox One because that's what they bought out of the gate because they were 360 people.
Yeah.
I switched to PS4 I bought both of them on launch day, but like I switched to PS4 for multi-platform stuff pretty quick because it was performing, just technically performing better there for the most part.
Yeah.
And now like it really is hitting the point where I just don't use the Xbox.
I really don't either.
And
I hardly play anything on it.
And it's sad because like I played through the 360 was probably 80% of my gaming time last generation.
Yeah. If my DirecTV box wasn't going through my Xbox One, it would never be on.
Well, I don't even have that.
Yeah, I mean, I do use it for that, in which I actually hate because it blocks like the 3D signal coming from my cable, from my DirecTV box into my TV. So I can't actually. I am one of the people who actually enjoys like 3D. Like I bought a really nice 3D TV and I like it, and I can't consume 3D content on my television now because there's no 3D pass-through on Xbox One. So, I mean, honestly, like, it may get to a place where I just take it out and just go direct back right through like it used to be, and that Xbox One will just sit there not doing anything.
Because I'd been to my friend's house when he had his cable plugged in through the Xbox, and every time... Because the Xbox One had just come out, everybody was watching football, it was NFL Sunday, and but we're talking about Xbox, and every time someone would say Xbox... The fucking system would try to change the channel.
I know.
And it happened.
My wife's voice gets picked up by Kinect all the time.
And it happened.
TV shows, it'll start fast forwarding them or rewinding them.
Well, no, that happened. It was overtime, last few seconds of a Broncos game, and the guy whose house we're at, he's the Broncos fan. We watched Super Bowl there this year. And I don't remember what happened, but something he yelled or someone yelled. They didn't say Xbox, but I guess Xbox interpreted it as Xbox Rewind.
Yeah.
And it's live television. It's the last 10 seconds of the final play. Are they going to do it or not? And the thing starts going backwards. And then everybody starts yelling at the Kinect. They're like, no, Xbox. And everyone and it can't hear us.
Going crazy.
And at a certain point, I'm just like, well, I think I'm just not going to plug my cable into this thing then. And I mean, over a year and a half ago, I unplugged the Kinect and I threw it in the drawer, and it hasn't been plugged in since.
Yep. So to get back on topic, I asked earlier, like, what's going to happen to Fable. I honestly think Microsoft is just going to give it to somebody else. They'll do the same thing they did with Gears. They'll do the same thing they did with Halo. They'll find another developer to make the next Fable game.
Or maybe even form a new team to just make Fable, like they did with
Gears.
They've done with Gears.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. There's the IP.
Fable is a valuable IP, and it could
is.
be it fills a role that like they just don't have anything else filling right now.
Yeah,
and probably ever.
Yeah.
So because like Scalebound isn't really the same thing. I don't think it's not a fun kind of it's
not, there's no whimsy in Scalebound.
No, probably not. But like I think that's
there's no comedy in Scalebound.
Well, that's Platinum. Platinum puts some wacky in there every once in a while, but it's not the focus.
No, their comedy is unintentional comedy usually.
But like Fable has that kind of British comedy sensibility, so maybe they can
that dry wit. Yeah.
So maybe they can kind of maybe even take some of the people that they were going to fire and bring them back.
Like I don't think this is the end of Fable. Like I think we'll eventually see it again. It may be a PC game, and
it'll be a Windows 10 only.
Yeah. But I think we will see Fable again, and maybe they get Molyneux off his ass and he stops making crappy mobile games that don't work. And I mean, that would be a good way to kind of reinvigorate the franchise, to say Molyneux's coming back to work on it, and maybe that gets people excited about it again.
Be interesting. I wonder how. I mean, I don't know anything about how Molyneux's feeling right now, but like after all this stuff with Goddess and how many
times really beat down.
How many times they've dropped that ball? It feels like that the 22 cans thing maybe hasn't worked out the way he was hoping.
Right.
And do you ever because the thing is like a lot of what he said that didn't come to fruition with like the Fable games and all that. Like I didn't really freak out about that because I thought stuff changes in development.
The thing too is that the games ended up being okay.
Yeah, they're
it's not
fine.
like they were bad games.
And it's not like, he shouldn't be like maybe, spouting design doc ideas before the final build is in, but like that's, I think it's literally because I met the guy several times and he loves video games. He's very excited about what he thinks they're going to be able to do. And sometimes his mouth gets ahead of reality.
Yeah.
But the 22 cans thing.
We can all be guilty of that here and there in life.
For sure. But the 22 cans thing I think was a little more, it felt a little more nasty in the sense that like what they did to that guy who won that contest and won the tap the
I think what we're finding is that Molyneux is not a good manager.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to put it.
The way they restructured.
Great guy, big dreamer. He's just not a manager.
He's a creative person.
Yeah.
He's not a business person. Really.
Right.
And that's where he should be. And it looks like they restructured 22 cans to kind of there's a business guy as the CEO running it now, and he's more of a creative director position. And it seems to be back on track in terms of who's doing their best job right now.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah. Before we move on to the next topic, I also want to give my condolences to the people who are inevitably going to lose their jobs at Lionhead and any of the other studios that Microsoft decides to shutter. Losing your job always sucks, no matter what. I would say probably most of those people probably have a nice little nest egg at this point.
I hope.
They worked at Lionhead all this time. The game sold pretty well. They should have got nice bonuses here and there, and I'm sure they were getting a nice salary while they were working on the game.
But it's been
they
a
weren't
long
working
time.
for Microsoft. Those Microsoft benefits are pretty nice. So hopefully they can land on their feet pretty well. There's a lot of talented people just looking at Fable Legends.
And there's there's a fairly large game development community in Guildford where they're based. That can hopefully pick up a lot of people.
Criterion,
Media Molecule. There's several others that I can't remember. They're smaller studios, but like.
So maybe I would have to relocate.
Yeah. And also remember that town was a sleepy little nothing town, and then now they're still a sleepy little English town, but they have a giant thriving game industry happening there, and that's all because Molyneux started Bullfrog there. It's that all comes from there, and just about anybody, Media Molecule, Criterion, all those guys came from Lionhead, came from Bullfrog,
from the tree,
from Molyneux, and all those guys
Molyneux
know each other.
planted the acorn.
Yeah,
they grew
planted the acorn and grew into a tree. That's what. It happened when it mattered.
Yeah. So and the fruit fell off the tree and rolled off to other studios.
So if you love Burnout, if you love Little Big Planet, Tearaway, all that stuff comes in the originally comes from Molyneux and what he started in that town. Everybody knows each other, and they all drink together in the same bar and stuff. So I'm sure that all those other developers will take care of these newly jobless Lionhead people as best they can. There is a support structure there, I think, and they're all really good people, and it's a very beautiful place. So hopefully they can be able to stay there and continue doing what they love to do.
Yep. Our condolences. Best of luck to everyone from Lionhead as they try to land on their feet. I mean, I guess the good news is they did kind of get a heads up.
Yeah.
So they have a couple of weeks. When did they say they're actually closing Lionhead?
I didn't see an actual date.
Yeah, so they do have a little time, it seems like, where they're still drawing a paycheck to kind of start looking
And it's
around.
not like the industry doesn't know.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think also Naughty Dog reached out to a couple studios in America. Actually, reached out to them and said, "Hey, maybe we can get you guys over here." So
because there is a lot of talent at that.
Oh
studio.
yeah, you can see it in Fable Legends.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why I can't believe the thing was canceled. It's really crazy. So anyway, we got to move on. We can't talk about this too much longer. So
especially the cape people.
Yeah,
great capes in
you
Fable
make
Legends.
great capes. You're right. All right, so the next topic we're going to talk about is indie game prices. This is spurred on by, this week it was announced that No Man's Sky will be a fully priced game. First of all, Matt, was that a surprise to you at all?
Nope.
Me either.
None
I
whatsoever.
seriously just thought it was a fully priced game the whole time. Like, it looks like a fully priced game.
Yeah,
they talk about it like it's a fully priced game.
No one is going to look at that on a shelf or at a demo station in Best Buy and think, "Oh, this doesn't look like a real game."
Yeah,
like it's no question.
I think a lot of the ire that has come from this announcement is expectations. One, for whatever reason, it's been labeled as an indie game, which I guess it is.
It is an indie game.
Yeah, I mean,
Hello Games is funding this themselves. Like they are getting. They're getting it on PS4, but they are not being funded by Sony.
I mean, it's a 16-man team making this game, which is really mind-blowing.
Originally 4.
Right.
Originally 4 people. In the original reveal at VGX several years ago, if you look at that video, 3 ships fly over in formation when the guy is like on the ground. And the reason it's 3 ships is because
they only had 4 people.
They had 4 people. 3 people could fly the ship, while the 4th guy was standing there looking at the ships. That's why there's 3 ships.
That is freaking hilarious.
And like, how amazing is that? That like your company is so small that to do your opening like reveal demo, everyone has to stop working to like capture footage. Like that's amazing.
So I mean, this is what spurred on this topic of for GameFace. But I just want to say, like, I don't have a problem with this game costing $60. I may not now. I don't. I may eventually once I play the game. But based upon what I've seen of the game, what they've shown of the game, what we know about the game, they've said it's 40 hours of gameplay or more. That falls right in line with the fully priced game.
Yeah.
So I don't really see the problem.
There are fully priced games that are a tenth of that.
Yeah, I mean, this might be. And I actually posted this on Sifted in one of the articles about this, but. This might be a case where the transparency of indie development has gone wrong. Where because people know how big the team is, how many people are working on it, that they're aligned with Sony, etc., that maybe the expectations were that, that it's an indie game, well, this is what I expect to pay for an indie game.
Maybe, but, like, that's stupid.
Yeah. It is stupid, yeah.
Like, all I can say is, like, I understand why people would say that, but I think the complaint is, if not wrong, it's at least irrelevant. Because you price something what you think people will pay for it, and people are paying for it. Like, it is the number one game for the PlayStation on Amazon for pre-orders. They have sold out of the limited edition PlayStation 4 version. I think they're close to selling out of that crazy $150 AIM 8-bit limited edition with the little chip, which I totally ordered.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I might regret the hell out of that because I don't, again, this is my number one most wanted game. I'm very excited about it. But look, I've noticed a thing about this game where there's 2 different people. There's the people that aren't interested or think it's going to be disappointing or think it's going to be stupid, who are more than happy to come into anything on any thread or Twitter conversation on the internet and tell you very loudly about how uninterested they are in this game.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are excited about it, but the people who are excited about it almost invariably say, "Yeah, I'm really excited about this game. I hope it's good."
Yeah.
It's like no one's like, "Oh, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be," a lot of times, like when you're excited about a game, you're like, "This is going to be the best game. It's going to be amazing." Everyone's like, "It could be good. It could be the best game." Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe it will be. It's like the people who are excited about this game all seem just like to be really hopeful optimists more than like hype men.
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting sort of like this X factor, because that's the other thing about this game is why I think a lot of people react so viscerally to it in the arguments and conversations about it on the internet right now is it's an X factor. Yeah. And we don't really get those anymore.
Big time X factor.
But we don't really get those anymore. Usually, how many games this year are coming out that you're like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be.
Here's one thing I'll say. I don't know if I've ever seen a game be played so much
and still not
have a clue whether I really want to play it or not.
Yeah. Well, because I think part of it is
Which scares me because it makes me think that like maybe there really isn't all that much to it.
But I think there is that much to it, and I think we've seen it, and it's there. My question about this game is, does it feel good?
Yeah.
Does it feel good when you play it? Is it going to have, are the controls, do they have that, that kind of sticky quality where like you play it and you feel like you're in control and you feel like, what you're doing on the control pad or on the keyboard and mouse like really translate into what you're looking at, and does it feel satisfying? That it's that intangible feel of the gameplay that of all the developers out, I think Nintendo nails the most often, because it's that idea of like that they used to say like how they made GoldenEye, where it's like they made it with like gray shaded stick figures, and it was still fun to play.
Right.
And it's like, is it fun if you strip all the window dressing away? Is it still fun to play the game? And that's my question about No Man's Sky. It's like, I think the tech is there. I think all the stuff they're saying is in the game. But is it fun to play moment to moment? Is it fun? Does it feel good in the way that Destiny feels good when you pop ahead?
All right, so we are getting off topic a little bit, because what we want to really talk about is the price of indie games. And this is what spurred it on, because people are freaking out over it. But what made me really want to talk about this is Super Hot, because that game is like less than 2 hours long, and it's $25.
I did see on your game eval for it that the value was pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, it got a 2 out of 10. It's like, you're going to ask me for $25 for a game that lasts like an hour and 40 minutes. Like, yeah, you're going to get a 2 in value. Like, and so let's actually start going down through history here a little bit. Let's start with Transistor. Transistor, the sequel to Bastion. It was really follow up, spiritual successor. It was really the first indie game to ask for $20, because before that, it was always like that $15,
$14.99.
$14.99 was the top, and that was like what you would pay for the very best indie games. Like, and look, Bastion, Transistor, they're worth $15. They were the top shelf of indie for $15. I had no problem paying $15 for Bastion. I would have had no problem paying $15 for Transistor either, but. So it goes up to $20. It ends up being a big success, by the way. Like, Transistor did really well, and I feel like that was the litmus test for the entire indie industry. Once everybody saw how that game didn't suffer at all by jacking its price up, more games started doing it. Ori and the Blind Forest was kind of the next one. Like, again, a really gorgeous...
I feel totally fine having paid $20 for Ori and the Blind Forest. But
yeah. Look, that is the one game we're going to talk about here that probably was worth the money. Ori and the Blind Forest, I would say. Like, but again, like, if Transistor hadn't come before it, I don't think Ori and the Blind Forest would have cost $20. And there was an uproar over Ori as well. People were like, what the hell? $20 for a side-scrolling platformer that lasts a handful of hours. Still better than Super Hot. But
less than I pay to go see a movie.
Yeah. And so...
Exactly what I paid to go see. That's how much my Batman vs. Superman ticket costs. $20.
Yeah. And so these two games are great games that after you paid the $20 for them, you felt okay with it because the games were great. They weren't crazy long, but they were long enough that you didn't feel like you totally got ripped off. But what that did was it cracked the door open for everybody else. And so what you start to see, the next game, Firewatch, $20. Firewatch... 2-3 hour game again for $20. It's not worth it. That's insane. Like, but they never would have done that. They never would have set the price for Firewatch at that if it weren't for games like Ori and Transistor coming before them at that price point. Like, I still don't know how they rationalize Firewatch at $20. To be perfectly honest with you,
I think you run the numbers, and if that's the price that it makes sense to charge for like the amount of time or effort or money you put into it, plus you think people will buy it, that's the price you charge. And I think Firewatch has sold quite well.
It has, but remember that they're also the studio that had the issue with the fan like requesting the refund, and then them being nice to the fan, and the fan being like, okay, you can keep my money, but... So there has been a little bit of a pushback on Firewatch with some people. I don't, we aren't privy to the refund numbers on Steam to know how many people asked for a refund or whatever, but the fact that one case bubbled up to where we did see it puts it a step above most indie games, because most indie games are never singled out as, this is a game that people ask for refunds for. Firewatch was one of them. Firewatch spurs on Super Hot. Super Hot. 2-hour game, $25.
Very cool looking. I mean, I really hadn't been paying attention to it until you talked about it on the show, and I'm like, but when I got home, I just couldn't pull the trigger for $25.
No, and you shouldn't. Like, nobody buy that game for $25. Like, don't do it. Like, there's modes, and we talked about this last week, but there's modes that open up after you finish it, but they're the same thing. You feel like you're playing the same game.
And it's weird that, like, I look at that game and it's so, like, it's not, empty, but it's like, it's a very simple, like, visual design. Whereas, like, with Firewatch, I'm like, well, these guys made, it's $20, but these guys made a whole forest.
Oh, yeah.
That you can walk through. And there's not really a lot
this game,
to do in it.
Super Hot is 30 rooms, basically, is what it is. Not just rooms. They're like 30 very small areas.
At the very least, you had to have saved some time or money on texturing, right?
Oh, yeah. No texture artists. I mean, if that game was textured, it would probably look like ass as well. I mean, the engine...
Well, it has to look like that, I think, to because the gameplay, you have to streamline it. You have to make it look clean so you can, like, really focus on what's important in the game. But, like, $25 for that is a hard sell for me, no matter how interested I am in it.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Matt. $25 for any indie game is too much for me. Like, I can't rationalize it. Like, I don't really look at No Man's Sky as an indie game, because when I think of indie games, I think of these guys have to, like, market it themselves, and they publish it themselves, and they have to pay their own way to fly to conventions. Like, you're independent. You're self-contained. You're like Sifted. Everything you do, you got to pay for yourself. There's no mothership there that will pass you down some cash to help you out.
But in that sense, shouldn't they be allowed to charge more because they spent their own money to do all that stuff?
But what I'm saying with No Man's Sky is that they haven't. Like, Sony has flown them all around the world to promote their game. I mean, the funny part is that, like, most people don't realize there's a PC version of this game coming. Think about that. Yeah. Sony has been paying for them to go to Gamescom and to come to E3 and to all their press events and PSX. Well, at this point,
I did order the I'm 8-bit version. I'm betting on the PC version right now.
I mean, it's not an indie game. Like, No Man's Sky is not an indie game.
But
they have had so many huge advantages that most indie games never have.
But it is an indie game because it's funded independently. Like, that's all that means.
I don't know if it is, though.
It is. That's all that means.
No, I mean, I don't know if it's funded independently because...
I think it is. Because if Sony funds something, they demand it to be on their system.
But isn't paying to fly somebody around, isn't that funding? Like, look, if somebody paid for me to go to PAX and promote Sifted, like, you're getting support from them.
But are they doing that?
Yes, of course. They're not paying their own way to go to E3 and to PSX.
Do you know that?
I do not know that for a fact, I will say. But dude, come on. Like, Sony's paying their way to come into town for whatever that they're doing. Like,
maybe, I would think. Especially back in the day when they were a four-man team, I would think, but I don't have any proof of that. I'm not going to level that at them.
I'm certainly not going to say 90% certainty that Sony.
Sure, but I'm still not going to say that means it's not an independent game because they're still making it on their own without publisher support on that level.
You don't know that either.
Although
they may be talking to tech guys at Sony.
I think they have, but everybody gets that if they're doing a PlayStation. The guys who made Transistor got that too.
This is a big game for PlayStation, man.
It is,
and Sony is going to throw whatever.
But I'm just saying,
at it to
all
make it a success.
Indie means is independently funded. The Star Wars prequels are indie movies,
right? But you're just looking. How are you looking at funding though? I mean, you're saying funding is what are you saying?
Game. The budget for the game.
But part of a game's budget is the marketing budget, and a travel budget, and a location budget, and all that. That's all part of paying for a game.
Not when you put it down on paper. That's why the marketing budget for a film is not part of its budget.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. And if Sony hadn't been flying them around the country or the world and doing all that stuff, the game would still be coming out. The game is funding,
and it would be flying under the radar.
Yeah.
But the
game would still exist. The game would still be there. Yeah. This game would still be happening.
Yeah.
The game doesn't exist because of Sony. The game is a phenomenon maybe because of Sony. The game is known because of Sony. But also remember that it's only known among people like it's enthusiasts. It's not about us, and everybody's saying like, oh, it's an indie game, it shouldn't be $60. When someone sees that, your average consumer, the mass market, they have no clue that this game isn't supposed to be an indie game or whatever.
They're going to see Ori is going to
as long
retail.
As it looks like that, they're not going to take it home and be like, holy shit, this should be a $20 game. Like, they don't know that.
Well, Ori's going to retail, and if you already own Ori in the Blind Forest, you have to pay another $5.
Yeah, I'm not too pleased
to get the extra content that's being included in the definitive edition that's going to retail.
But there's sort of that weird... I don't know why I feel that
way. Now you spent $25 on Ori and the Blind Forest.
But it's like, I spent $9 on it, but I don't know why I feel that way, though, where I don't know why I feel entitled to that extra content, because there's like that feeling I have where it's like, well, I bought it before then, before you were anything, and I bought it, and I helped you, and I was on there. I was on board early for all.
Well,
but it's like,
in a sense, you're right, though, because
but it's also kind of bullshit because it's just like, well, they put more effort and they spent more money and they spent more time to make this extra stuff. And, that's not free.
Right.
But why do I think it should be?
I can see both sides, though, because if it weren't for people like you who bought the game, it would not even have a chance to go to retail.
I see both sides because, intellectually, I know I'm an idiot for thinking that, but I still think that. I still feel like that $5 should not be. I'm like, I should just get that.
So,
I don't know.
So in a recent episode of Pachter Factor, one of the questions that they asked him was, is there a place for mid-tier games now? And when we talk about mid-tier, we're not talking about 5-hour games. Mid-tier games were games.
I'm surprised you didn't put in The Witness for $40 in there.
Yeah.
Because that's another step.
It really is.
I think that's
that's
partly
the bridge between
I think that's part of
No Man's Sky.
Well, I think that's part of why people reacted to No Man's Sky in some ways is because you're just seeing the indie
steps.
prices step up and up and up, and I don't think No Man's Sky's price is related to The Witness's price. But from the point of view of a consumer...
You don't think? You don't think that they looked at that and were like, well, people paid $40 for that game?
No, I think they knew before The Witness came out how much they were going to charge for this game. No question.
That's like you telling me that I don't know if Sony paid for their travel.
Because you could... a year ago, I could have told you you're going to be able to get away with charging $60 for this game. People are going to see
you get away with it, but you don't know that that's the case. The bottom line is, maybe they were thinking about it before, but when they saw the $40 price tag for The Witness... and then they saw the sales of The Witness. If they had any misgivings about pricing this at $60, they were like, "Oh, we're going for it now."
But from a consumer point of view, I think you see that more, as a more direct result, stepping stone, maybe. It's just oh my God, they're the indie games are becoming full price games, and now Axiom Verge 2 is going to be $60. And I don't think that's true. I
don't either, but I could see Axiom Verge 2 being $25 or $30.
But I think it's also because these things don't look like Super Meat Boy anymore.
Yeah.
These are. I think an argument could be made that indie games might be getting a little AAA at this point.
Well, it's also a lot easier to make games that look better now because the middleware is so good. In the expense, and this is one argument I saw over No Man's Sky that I do kind of agree with a little bit, is that it is a lot easier to develop video games now than it ever was. Your cost of developing a game is way cheaper. There's a reason why.
I don't know if it's easier when you were one guy in a garage with an Apple IIe and a floppy disk, but
Well, I'm talking about today, not back in the day. Of course, it was really hard to develop games back in the day. I'm talking about now, with all the middleware that you have and the support that you have from those middleware people. There's a reason 16 people were able to make this game. This game 10 years ago would have taken 200 people to make. But first of all, the technology wasn't there to make it at all.
That's the thing. The procedural generation means you don't need a large, because you don't have to handcraft every one of these worlds.
Right.
So that's.
I'm just saying the art and all the objects that they throw into the pot to mix them up and spit them out into the procedurally generated worlds, just the art assets and all that stuff. You could never make this game with that small of a team. So a lot of people are like, well, look, it's only 16 guys, but 16 guys today is kind of like 100 guys, which I don't necessarily agree with, is 100 guys 10 years ago. So the other thing I want to really get to here is mid-tier games, which I was talking about earlier with Michael Pachter, and they asked him, is there a place for mid-tier games? And he kind of said, the indies have kind of stepped in to fill that void. But there's a difference between what we used to call mid-tier games and these indie games. And look, the indie games, you're right, they look like they're AAA games. They're graphically, they're not all of them. There's still indie games that look pretty crappy. But some of them do look up to scratch with, a lot of AAA games. But when you play them, you realize that they pale in comparison to most games that you pay $60 for. And that's the difference between what used to be called the mid-tier game and today's indie games, is that the mid-tier games, it wasn't that they had necessarily smaller teams on them or it cost less to develop. Sure, maybe a little bit less. But what it really came down to was that they knew that the topic was niche. For instance, I bring up this example a lot, like Beach Spikers, Sega's volleyball game.
You were the fourth person to mention that game to me in the last 2 days.
Really?
I don't get it. I don't know why.
Either.
Beach Spikers is on everybody's mind.
But that's something I always talk about when I talk about mid-tier games, because it was this $30 game that, it's a niche game. Most people don't care about volleyball. I have friends who are professional volleyball players. That's all they care about when they buy a console. They're like, which one has the best volleyball game?
None of them.
They don't, because the mid-tier has gone away. And it wasn't that like they were less quality. They were just based on something that a smaller audience would care about, and so they were priced accordingly. And I feel like a lot of indie games are kind of the same way. Like I don't feel like people who like Call of Duty, I wouldn't recommend No Man's Sky to someone who plays a lot of COD, for instance, or someone who plays a lot of Gears of War or anything, or even like a Halo. I don't think I would recommend it to. It still is. It's like Journey. That game's kind of polarizing. Like that game was given perfect 10s by a lot of people. But the average player who would pick up Journey would be like, what the F is this crap? And so in the past, they've been really smart with games like that and said, look, this isn't going to appeal to everybody, but it's going to appeal to somebody. And so we got to price it at a place where they feel okay paying X amount of dollars for it. And so what I'm seeing are these indie games creeping up to the cost of that old B-list game and being like a fifth of what those games were. Like some of those like B-list games were like insane Japanese RPGs that you could play for like 80 hours.
Yeah, but they also cost the same as the big games.
No, I'm saying like those B-list games, a lot of those Japanese RPGs would cost like $39.99 when they first came out. Like they were cheaper. Like
I'm the one who bought all those things, and they all cost the same. They all cost $50.
No, they didn't. No,
I paid $50 for every damn copy of Suikoden.
Well, Suikoden, of course, that's a big franchise. But some of the smaller ones, like Breath of Fire, like I think that one on PS2 came out at $39.99.
Which one? The Breath of Fire 4 or whatever that was?
I think so, yeah.
That might have been. Because Capcom did do that quick experiment with, like, we're going to release lower cost, like, mid-tier. Yeah, Capcom tried that for a while, that's right.
But what I'm saying is that, like, these games that were coming in at that 30, and look, the indie games are creeping up to it, that $30 price range were more robust games than you're getting from these indie games today.
I think it depends. I mean, you're at the same time, you could bring up Breath of Fire 4, but you also bring up something like God Hand, which is a 6-hour beat-em-up, which is also, I think, $40 when it came out.
Right. Or you could bring up a game like Rocket League. Like, there's an indie game where you get, like, tons of play out of if you really connect with it.
I don't know. I mean, and then I go back to the whole, you pay the same amount for a movie ticket, whether the movie costs $300,000 or $300 million.
And whether it's 70 minutes long or 3 hours long.
3 hours long. I mean, Batman vs. Superman costs $150 million to make, but The Purge cost $300,000, and you paid $15 to see that for opening night one way or the other. So, like, the pricing, but again, $15 is, you could see that as a bargain if you're seeing the really expensive movie, but then how come you don't pay only $5 to see the indie movie?
That's actually a good question. Why is that?
Well, because there's an infrastructure there to deal with it, and it's just how it's always been.
Because it's bullcrap. But
that's how it's always been.
I hate, and I've said it on the show before, I hate that statement. It's the way it's always been. Like, anytime I ever hear that from anybody, I'm like, no, that's wrong. Like,
yes, but it's the film industry.
Right.
Like, of all the industries in the world, like, that's the one that's never going to change.
It's a dinosaur,
Yeah. I mean, look at it's, and I see a similar thing with the indie game movement here. I see a similar thing happening with like Deadpool, where Deadpool is an R-rated superhero movie that suddenly comes out and does the best business of any R-rated movie ever, and now you're just going to already start to see all the studios taking the wrong lesson from that.
Well, I think Marvel said they're not going to do any.
Marvel's not going to do it, but the other studio, I mean, I guarantee you, Deadpool is going to result in a Spawn movie, an R-rated Spawn movie.
I think that's already being worked on. Like,
that's been in development hell for 12 years. But like, I think you're seeing the same thing where like, you're taking the wrong lesson from the idea that, like, I'm wondering if anyone will take the wrong lesson from No Man's Sky being $60, where it's like, oh, we can charge $60 for our indie game now too because it looks good.
But that's what's been happening. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can see the progression.
I don't know if that's what's been happening. I mean, I think that's what happened with The Witness because, like, I mean, I played it because we had to talk about it, but I'm not too happy I spent $40 in that game.
Yeah.
No Man's Sky, like, being 60, on one hand, you're looking at something where you look at it and, like, you can't tell the difference necessarily between it and a big-budget, full-price game. But on the other hand, the optimistic part of me is like, well, maybe Sony's playing this, and they're like, this play experience is on par with a AAA, game. Like, and so we're going to charge that much for this because we think that's what it's worth.
Yeah.
And that's a very optimistic way of looking at it, I admit. But like, I get that game in my hands and I'm playing, I'm like, yeah, this feels like it was made by a 200-person studio with like, massive publisher support. Like, I won't be unhappy I paid $60 for it. If it feels like, like somebody, cobbled together a new version of Battle Tanks for $20, I'm going to be pissed. It's like, I don't know that until I play it, but I wonder if people are going to take, like you're saying, the wrong lesson from this game being priced at $60. And because it's like Deadpool didn't make a ton of money because it was an R-rated superhero movie. It made it because it was a good movie.
It was a good movie, right.
Like maybe No Man's Sky is being priced at this because Sony believes it is a AAA experience that simply hasn't been made in the normal fashion. But then you're going to start seeing people like, maybe The Witness 2 thinks it can be 60. In 2025 or whatever, whenever that would come out.
I'm just seeing the prices creep up, and like to me, I thought indie games at first were the sweet spot. The $15 spot to me should be the maximum price for a good indie game that lasts, the 6 to 8 hour length.
Mm-hmm. Well, how far back does the $15 price go to? Like what, 2010 or 2009-ish?
Yeah.
Because like inflation-wise, you're probably creeping up to about $20 being the equivalent to a $2009 now.
Yeah, but game prices don't. Inflation has never affected game prices.
Well, no, but
game prices have basically stayed the same forever.
But that's not true. Well, I mean, they've stayed the same, literally the number. Yeah. But a $60 game today is not. You're not paying the same amount of what the currency is worth that we did. Like a $60 game for the Super Nintendo. I think if you do the inflation if you do the inflation from like 1992 to now, that's like $115 in 2016 money.
Well, there was like N64 carts that cost. Like
that's not even getting. Yeah, I mean,
I
bought Phantasy Star 4 the day it came out for $99.99. That was the suggested retail price.
Yeah.
That's $150. That's the same amount I'm paying for No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
In 2016 for the and No Man's Sky comes with a metal ship. Phantasy Star Online just came with a slipcase. So, games have never been cheaper on a dollar-to-dollar, comparison. And it's just
they're also selling a lot more of them now.
Yeah, the volume's definitely there. If you can break into that public consciousness beyond like people like you and me, there's there. And I think that's part of the strategy with No Man's Sky too. Is I think if they market it, to the retailers as this is a $60, this is one of our big pushes, is one of our big games, because it's not like you really, the console space, in the retail space, it's not like you have to worry about competing with the PC version, really, because no one carries those anymore. I think they're going to get more interest from the retailers, in carrying this full-priced game as one of their big tentpole PlayStation 4 games, whereas if it was like priced at like a, $30, $25 range, I think they might be automatically overlooked by a lot of distributors in that regard.
I mean, the other angle of this, too, is, there's always Humble Bundles and Steam sales.
Oh, yeah. Eventually it will be $20.
Right. Because, I just feel like...
And there will still be planets to discover, I promise, because we're never going to see a third of them.
I just feel like a lot of this recent pricing is going to embolden developers to do stupid things like charging $20 for Firewatch.
Well, I wonder if it's going to embolden them, plan to charge more money, which means you put more money into development, which means when it doesn't sell at that price, you go out of business.
You pay the price, yeah. I mean, look, you can say Firewatch sold well, but you don't know if it would have sold, if they'd have generated way more revenue if it was $15, and just more people would have bought it.
When you also don't know, if are there people out there who bought Firewatch who maybe they didn't ask for a refund, but they still feel kind of burned, Firewatch. Firebird. But they still feel a little burned by that they spent $20 on it, so they're going to be more wary next time a $20 indie game comes along, and maybe you're not that indie game's not going to sell.
I mean, Super Hot, especially, man. If some people pay for that at full price, I guarantee you, the next time they go to buy an indie game, they're going to think long and hard about it because. The reviews for Super Hot were through the roof, man.
Yeah.
All the scores 8, 9. Whatever.
But you always have to remember that those people aren't paying to play it.
Yeah, it was interesting. I actually saw an editor from Polygon, either on Facebook or Twitter, I can't remember which, asking their users if they should consider value in their reviews.
Yes.
No. He was no. That no, we shouldn't consider that. And then honestly, a lot of the responses...
You're a product critic. You're not an art critic.
Dude. A lot of the responses from his followers and his friends on Facebook were no, you should never consider that. And I'm
I don't agree with that at all. Because in the end, what you're doing when you write a game review is you're trying to help someone decide whether they're going to purchase it or not.
Spend the money. See, look.
I don't care how artsy something is. You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cars are works of art too. But every single car evaluation is always going to take into account the price point of the car.
Yeah.
Because everybody's sort of it's $60, $50. It's not going to break the bank, and then you scale it up to a car's price.
See, Matt,
and that's different.
It's the new games.
But it's not
journalism.
different. It's product reviews. That's. I believe games are art too. You can't. 200 artists cannot work on something for 3 years and not come out with a product that is art.
Yeah.
But my job is to tell you whether you spend money on it.
Yeah. See, that's my stance on evaluating games. Is it's my job to tell you whether you should spend your money on it or not. That's honestly my whole job. That's what I look at.
That's where the buck stops, literally.
That's how I look at it. Like, I don't care about evaluating games as art. Like, I don't give a crap about any of that pretentious bullshit, for lack of a better term. Like, my job is to tell you whether you should buy a game or not. That's it.
I do care about that stuff, but I think it goes hand in hand with saying whether it's not worth the price. I mean,
right. Well,
I think not Firewatch. I think Super Hot. Firewatch and Super Hot I keep confusing because they're both Heat.
Yeah.
Super Hot, I think that looks really awesome. I think it is a really cool, not just a piece of art, but it's also kind of a deconstruction of the shooter in a lot of ways. Yeah. But I still don't want to spend $25 on it. It's like how there's like Spotlight. I knew Spotlight was going to be the best picture. I totally wanted to see it. I want to know what it's about. I like Mark Ruffalo and I love Michael Keaton. But I don't want to spend $15 to see it in a cinema. I'm going to watch it when it's on free on demand.
Well, I can drink a beer. Yeah.
So it's like it's not like I disrespect the art for that, but it's like watching Spotlight in a theater doesn't make it any better than watching it at home, whereas watching some big stupid action movie on the giant screen in the theater is awesome. And
they're saying that
film critics always take into account the cost of spending that money on a film ticket or going to the theater when they're reviewing a movie. At least the good ones do. Roger Ebert always knew you were paying X amount of money to see this movie, and was it worth your time and money?
Well, the new games journalism, quote unquote,
new games live journalism,
tries to evaluate games based on something that is completely subjective. Art. Mm-hmm. Like, one person could look at a painting and say, that's the most amazing painting I've ever seen. I'll give you $2,000 for it. Somebody else looks at that painting and is like, I wouldn't even pee on that painting. Mm-hmm. So to find something that is objective, like what value you're getting out of something that you're across X amount of dollars that you're paying for it, that seems like the more logical way to try to evaluate anything.
Well, see, I don't think that's objective. I think that's subjective, too. Like, we're going to come out of No Man's Sky, and you might hate it and think it was a total waste of $60, and I might think it's the best $60 I spent all year.
Well, no. I could still look at that game and see how people could get X amount of entertainment out of it. That's what value is about.
But that's because you're seeing another subjective point of view from your point of view. You're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Super Hot is an hour and 40 minutes, like, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I paid $25.
That's objective. It's objectively an hour and a half long.
Yeah, but is that a good use of $25 versus I spent $25 to see an hour and 40-minute movie?
Well, that's not. That's why you don't evaluate a product entirely based on value. It's just one element that goes into it. But to completely ignore that element, which I personally think is one of the more important elements of product evaluation, seems crazy to me. Crazy.
Well, of course. Like, it's got to be part of it.
Right.
Like,
but it's not.
You have to say how... I mean, does that...
Polygon's saying it's not.
Does the Polygon review say, not even say how long it is? I haven't read it.
I don't think their reviews do say how long games are.
Because that's... I mean... And, the other thing
I don't know.
is,
I can't say that for
the
sure.
other thing I have to say on that is, okay, if Polygon doesn't want to review games like that, they want to review games as though they're reviewing a painting with no set price.
Which is what they're saying, yeah.
Fine. I mean...
Sure, they can do whatever they want.
It just means I got to read a couple other reviews.
Yeah.
And there's the other, there's time to completion, that website that tells you the average time it takes normal people.
I didn't even know that site existed.
I don't remember if that's actually the website. I'm sure someone.
But there's a site that gets.
It's a site that you put in how long it took you to complete, whether you played it just straight through, whether you played it at casual or a speed run, and whether you played it for completion. And it has 4 or 5 different average completion times for every game.
I've never seen that site.
I'll dig it up. I'm sure someone will post it in the comments, but it's it just kind of, you can look at it and obviously the game has to be out before that. It doesn't help you on launch day, but it can give you an idea of how long a game is if you're highly skilled and speed running through it, or if you're just trying to collect everything. It's a useful metric. So I'll go there after I read the Polygon review, I guess. It's and that's the nice thing is we were talking before the show where it's there was a day when I was a youth, when I was a young man.
Back in the day.
25 years ago when I went into a store and I wanted a new computer game, and I would look at the box and I would hope that the screenshots on the back of the box
were real.
or at least would look like what my computer could run when I got it home.
Yeah.
And I would take that, I'd take it home, and if I opened it, I could never return it again, and that was $50 down the drain.
You're so spoiled.
Now you can watch a video, you can read all these reviews, you can look at the YouTube, you can look at the streaming, you can look at the
you gotta
time
realize,
of
even in
so
the
much information
N64 PlayStation era,
yeah,
the beginning of it, like towards the end, websites started coming around. But even still, the websites didn't have much video of the games. Like,
no, video was unknown.
People could write about it, but to actually see the game in motion was unheard of. You have to watch a TV commercial to see the game in motion.
Remember, it was like a big deal when we were at Tech TV. It was a big deal that we put up the video reviews. No one did that.
Yeah. Well, Nintendo used to. It thought this was worth it. Put out VHS tapes.
Yeah.
I still have like an old Banjo-Kazooie VHS tape. I have another like a Nintendo Sizzle VHS tape that had like the N64 lineup on. Like, it's crazy how much things have changed. You're so informed now.
The first time I ever saw Super Nintendo footage was a friend of mine who had his dad would go to Japan on business trips. They were a Chinese family, and his dad had business in Japan and all through Asia, and he would bring back bootleg VHS tapes of Super Famicom footage. So we sat. I'm not kidding. We sat there and we watched a 3-hour recording of someone playing Super Mario World and ActRaiser.
Yeah.
Like and then like his dad eventually brought him the system, and so then we played that when that first came out. But like we passed that VHS tape around to like 50 kids.
Yeah.
We would
worn out.
We'd put it. At one point, I brought it to school. We put it in like the AV room recorder, and like 20 people came in and watched Super Mario Bros. I mean, I guess nowadays I'm just like, who the fuck would watch people play video games? Like, and then I'm like, oh, I watch people play video games because you couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't play it yourself.
Right, there's no chance to ever see it. Yeah,
no, it was too new, and like that was like that was how we saw Super Nintendo for the first time. And that was more information than we had about almost any other. I mean, Super Mario World, when that first came out, because I had watched it, I was like, oh, I'll show you how to do this secret thing. Because I'd watched a guy do it in Japan and record it on VHS.
Yeah.
And like, that was more information than we
Nintendo Power
ever had.
Magazine, that was a big resource.
Or like VG&C, Video Games and Computer Entertainment Magazine, where they would do those strategy guides where it was like 100 screenshots, and it was just like, 4 screenshots per page, and they'd walk you through every single level, and they'd take screenshots of the whole level, like they'd walk a little bit, and then they like paste it all together to have a full map of the whole side-scrolling level.
That's so funny.
Like, can you imagine how long that took back then without the computers to do that? Yeah. They would literally do that with like interpositives. They would do that. It was crazy, and that was like I would read those and like decide what I wanted to play or buy off of like, oh, that level looks cool because I can look at it like this. Like there was no such low information, and now you're looking at like something like No Man's Sky. You want me to spend $60 on it, but it's like at least I can watch like a couple hours of video footage and decide.
A lot of people, that's still not enough.
Yeah, well,
the times they have changed.
That's the thing, is I'm super excited about the game, but I'm like, I get what these people are questioning. I understand why they look at this and they're like, but what do you do?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you do this, this, and this. But it's like the question is like, what does it all add up to?
Right.
And like and I think that's a valid question for a lot of games these days. A lot of these indie games where you're like The Witness, that's a good question. But what do you do? Well, you solve line puzzles. Well, yeah, but then what? Well, then you solve the next one.
Yeah.
It's like, but what? And
I still say that after playing it. I'm still like, what?
This high concept shit is tough to get your mind around, and
that's why I'm saying like the prices of this stuff going up is insane and it's like you said, like somebody takes a gamble on one of these $25 indie games and it's not for them. Like they could turn their back on future indie games. So we got to move on. We probably spent too much time on this topic, but I think it was a really interesting one and probably one that we'll talk about again.
I think this is definitely going to come up again and again. Beyond No Man's Sky.
Because it's like the dam is broke now.
Yeah.
It's like you got $40 The Witness, you got a $60 No Man's Sky.
Somewhere out there,
$25 is commonplace now.
Oh, somewhere out there, like you said, somewhere out there is someone thinking maybe they could get away with a $60 price tag for their indie game, and just like the No Man's Sky maybe saw The Witness, and Sony was like, oh, I think we can do that. Yeah. Maybe someone's looking at No Man's Sky and thinking like, oh, if they'll buy that for $60, they'll buy this for $60.
Yeah.
And who knows
if they're right or not. Spiral. Yep. All right, let's move on to the next topic, our weekly Nintendo rumors topic. Literally, I think we've done this like 4 episodes in a row now because every week some new leak happens. We'll talk about the Nintendo Direct in a bit, but one of the recent leaks that did once again come true was a new Paper Mario game for Wii U. So almost all these leaks are like panning out so far. And the latest one is that Beyond Good and Evil 2, a game that was announced in
20 a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't even remember when that was. Was that like 2010?
I think so.
Yeah.
So the rumor is, and again, this is one of those, is coming from somebody who has been dead on about multiple rumors in the past.
And how weird is it that so much is leaking out of Nintendo right now?
Yeah.
Because they're usually airtight.
I think it kind of needs stuff to leak out at this point.
You're right.
So the rumor is Nintendo is paying to fund the development for Beyond Good and Evil 2, which would ultimately make the game a Nintendo NX exclusive. The game has been in development hell for 6 years?
At least.
Just 4 months ago, I think it was, Michel Ancel came out and
when
said...
they premiered this trailer, this looked way better than we knew any game could look at the time.
And
now it kind of looks like, oh, maybe it's indie. I don't know.
That's how long it's been announced. Yeah, well, this was like CG, basically.
Yeah, this was CG.
When this trailer was debuted. This wasn't even plausible as like in-engine
like looking
graphics.
at that character model, you're like, there's no way that could be real time on a console.
Now it's like Naughty Dog would destroy that. So we're talking about a game that basically was in development, went out of development. Michel Ancel just a few months ago came out and said, "Oh no, we're still working on it." That's another thing to me that lends credence to this. Was just recently he was asked about this game, and in the past where he'd be like, "Oh, we're not really talking about that." This time, he said, "Oh yeah, it's still a part of the plan." And then 3 months later, this rumor leaks out that Nintendo's funding the development of it. So I am leaning to the side of this being legit, first of all. But the question I have is this a good idea for Nintendo to fund this game?
No.
I agree 100%.
Not in any way.
It is.
I love Beyond Good and Evil. I will kill human beings to get Beyond Good and Evil 2. But I don't know why in the world why Nintendo would want to do this. Didn't they learn their lesson from Bayonetta 2?
That's exactly what I was saying. To put this in perspective, I did some research today to prepare for this episode of GameFace, and the research pulled up that this game literally has sold like 300,000 copies across its whole lifetime.
With all those remakes and
after the Xbox 360 re-release, the first month this game was released across 3 platforms, it did 40,000 in sales.
Wow. And they released this up against like Prince of Persia.
It came out in the holiday time against one of Ubisoft's own games.
Same day as another as Prince of Persia, I think it was.
It was. Yep. And it sold 40,000 copies in its first month across 3 platforms.
Unbelievable. That's the second. Ubi used to do that in a weird way. Like,
it still does it.
Well, they just did it with Far Cry and The Division. Yeah. But remember when
it doesn't learn its lessons. Apparently,
on the N64, I think it was Rayman 2 came out the same day as Rocket Robot on Wheels. Which was by Sucker Punch.
Yeah, Rocket's an underrated gem,
by the way.
Rocket
is great.
Yeah, it's a really good game.
Put that on Virtual Console, but they never will.
Yeah. That's one people would buy.
Yeah,
because you can't find it. That game is crazy rare.
Yeah, I don't usually do it, but when I went up to Sucker Punch to do some interviews for one of the Sly games, and I brought my cartridge of Rocket and had him sign it, and they're like, and the guys are like, I can't believe someone played this.
The red cartridge.
The red cartridge. Yeah. And they're like, "Oh my God, someone has this!" I'm like, "Dude, that game was amazing.
It was really
that
good,
was physics-based platforming before anyone was doing it."
We're getting off topic, but
it's also it's like, you know, these great ideas for games that Ubi has buried over the years, and Beyond Good and Evil is another one of them, I think. And I don't know what you do for a sequel. Hopefully,
well, it's supposed to be a trilogy from the get-go.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. Yeah, it does feel like an Act 1 if you play that whole game, the first game. Mm-hmm. But I don't understand.
For those of you who don't know, by the way, because this game did come out so long ago, Beyond Good and Evil is basically a Zelda clone with photography.
Yeah,
it's probably the best. If you're gonna, the elevator pitch, I guess, is the best way to put it.
And really good character. Like the characters are really cool. Jade and Paige.
The production values were great. Like voice acting was incredible. The graphics were great.
Maybe a little too much. A little too much stealth sequences here and there. But it works. Like it wasn't bad gameplay.
If you play it now, it's not an amazing game.
Well, the problem
I would say that much.
The problem I have
it doesn't hold up like Ocarina of Time or anything.
I tried to play it recently and I can't because I play inverted Y. Yeah. But when you invert, there's no individual axes inverting on the first on Beyond Good and Evil 1. When you invert the Y, you
invert
also
both.
invert X,
Oh my
and I
God.
can't do that.
Who would ever design something like that?
Lego.
That's
The Lego games are like that too.
insane. That's so dumb.
So it's hard to play if you're an inverted Y player, but otherwise,
Yeah.
yes, go play Beyond Good and Evil, probably on PC.
Yeah.
It's on Steam for a very reasonable price, I think like $9.99.
Yeah, it was on Xbox 360 as well. They put out like an HD version of it, 720p
It's all the
version.
same thing.
It is, yeah.
But it's super cool and super fun, and the photography is great. Like it's a really it's like you wouldn't think you'd be able to build a whole game around it, but it really does work.
Well, the camera ends up doing like a bunch more stuff more than
Yeah.
just taking photos, and that kind of extends sort of the
It's kind of how you like level up skills and there's
Right.
some different and get money. And,
But I honestly just like the photography part of it
Yeah.
because you come into contact with these crazy, fantastical creatures, and you as Jade, you are a photojournalist. That's actually the whole setup for the game is you're a photojournalist, and so there's all these weird like news reports and stuff in the game. I thought that was a little odd, but
yeah, well, it's also like it takes place in this sort of like sci-fi fantasy world where like it's very interesting. It's like one of those great worlds where it's like it's all really interesting, but they never like step back and just explain everything to you. It's just
Yeah.
like it's like Star Wars. You have to kind of gather how the society works by sort of going through it and sort of picking up context clues and everything.
Yeah.
And it's also like really French in terms of
yeah.
like it's super it felt like a Mobius comic in some ways. Like
But I liked Paige, like the pig.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he's a great character. Like I actually, cared about him and what happened.
voice
to
acting
him.
was really good, especially for the era.
And there's like some cooperative stuff in it where like you have to like work in tandem with Paige to get through certain sections of the game. Look, it's a good game. I play it now. I think I played it or tried to play it a couple years ago, and it didn't hold up as well as I thought it would. But it's still a good game. So, and that game design hasn't worn out its welcome yet. Obviously, Zelda games are still coming out, and people are still enjoying them. So, I could see where the game could be amazing. I just don't think when you're paying for exclusives and you're paying to fund projects, you're doing that to get people to buy your platform. And
And you just really are hoping those 40,000 people come back, I guess.
Yeah. Here's what I would say is that it would convince the 12 million people that what we've really discovered is Nintendo's fan base is 12 million. They're the hardcore who will buy anything Nintendo
They're
makes.
going to buy a system that Nintendo makes no matter what.
This game would make them buy the console, or they're going to buy it anyway, but it would make them feel good about buying the console, knowing that it was coming. Is it going to make anybody who's on the fence for buying an NX or choosing between a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One or the NX, is it going to change their mind?
Not enough.
I don't think it
There
would
aren't
at
enough
all.
people that care about that game for that to happen.
No one played it the first time around.
Right.
And why would they care about it now, like 10 years later? Like,
I mean, I still care, but like again, and the other thing is like, are you going to call it Beyond Good and Evil 2? Because
Yeah.
like that even seems like it would alienate more people. Because like if you're like, oh, well, I haven't played the first one, so why would? That's the other thing is Beyond Good and Evil 1 ends on a cliffhanger,
yeah.
and so I wonder. I mean, I assume you just have to start with like a recap video or something. But I think
Well, there's already been gameplay footage of it released. In fact, there's some in the B-roll that we have there. If you look at the end of the one clip, yeah, there's some
with
footage.
her running across the rooftops. Or something
Yeah,
like that.
there's already some gameplay. So the game is kind of like there, I'm assuming. I mean, it looks like they put it on the back burner or whatever. But it was in development and actually had looked like it had made some pretty good strides.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's just like a thing where like they pretty much had what they wanted to do down, but it's like Ubi's like, if it doesn't sell 3 million, like we don't want to talk to you, and so but if Nintendo wants to come in and like fund it, like, who are they to say no? I guess.
Yeah.
I just think it's a weird choice because it does, I mean, I guess it'll get you some print in the enthusiast press, but it's like, I feel like it's not gonna like get you a lot of people you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, so Destructoid broke this story. Ubisoft came to Destructoid and asked them to take the story down. Destructoid said, no way, Jose. Which just makes me believe that Destructoid believes in its sources even more. Because here's the thing. If a publisher comes to you and tells you the story's fake, take it down, it's not true, most publications will take the story down.
Yeah.
But that story's still up. I checked it today, and Destructoid has not removed the story. So,
Well, if it's a fake, it would be a very impressive one.
yeah.
So,
I'm not talking about this gameplay. I'm saying about Nintendo funding its completion or whatever.
okay. I mean, it sounds crazy enough to be real.
Yeah.
And like, there's been, stuff has been bubbling up about it for a long time. So, sure. I mean, I'll play it.
Look at Bayonetta 2. I mean, you said it right off the top. Game tanked.
Tanked hard. And mostly what it seemed to do.
And you know what? Every other publisher, even Sega, who is typically really stupid with its business decisions, could have told Nintendo not to do it.
But it didn't.
Like, Nintendo, if they looked at Sega and said, Sega's passing on this, that's a huge red flag.
Right. And Sega made Sonic Boom.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Come on.
And look, Bayonetta 2 is a great game, but it's just a niche, very niche market for it.
And also, like, a lot of people who loved Bayonetta 1 did not react well to the idea of being blackmailed into buying a Wii U to play the next one.
Right.
So, I don't think that's a factor as much.
Well, they wouldn't have played it at all otherwise. I mean, the game was going to be canceled, so...
Now you're getting logical, and that's not going to work when we're talking about video games.
But
like with Beyond Good and Evil 2, I don't think that's the same. That's going to be a factor because it's so long ago. I played it on the GameCube, so it's like,
so did I.
So it's not like I'm going to get angry. I got to buy a new system for it. But it's like, I just don't understand. I mean, it's a good game. I mean, maybe it could be like a new hit if you wanted it to be, but it's just
if it had come from like Majesco or something, then maybe I could see the angle of, well, Nintendo looks at it like we're much better at marketing this stuff than Majesco, and so maybe we could have more success with this than they had. But dude, it was Ubisoft. Like,
I mean, is this Nintendo's like third-party strategy? Is like we're gonna fund like third-party
games
publishers,
that nobody else wants?
No one else wants to make?
That's what it sure sounds like.
Because if you bribe EA to make Starflight 3, like, I'm in.
Well, here's another one.
That's my Starflight reference for the week.
Here's another one. Devil's Third.
Yeah.
Same deal. Nobody wanted that. It got shuffled around to publisher. Nintendo steps in to quote unquote save it. It ends up so embarrassed in it that it hardly even produces any copies to sell. You should buy that, by the way.
They did a second run. They're up on Amazon now, but they are probably not going to. That's going to be one of those valuable ones that no one bought.
You should buy it and never open it because it's not worth opening and playing anyway.
No, don't bother. But just like buy it, keep it, and like 5 years from now, sell it for $200 and like buy some real games with it.
Yeah, there you go. So we should move on. I think we're both in agreement. This is a terrible. If it's true, it's a terrible idea. Nintendo should not fund the development of this game.
I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, as a Beyond Good and Evil fan, I totally want to play the game.
Me too. I'm excited. I want to play it,
but I think you're crazy.
Business decision, not the smartest decision. Hopefully, it's not true.
Should have kickstarted it, boys.
Well, actually, no. Hopefully, it is true because I do want to play it.
Right.
And Nintendo probably is the game's last hope. So
yeah,
I'm hoping it's true. If I'm a Nintendo stockholder, I'm hoping it's completely false.
Right.
So that's the best way to put it, I guess. All right, let's move on to the next topic. People have probably been looking at this saying, what the hell is BDO? Is that a new kind of body odor? It actually may
kind
be.
Kind of.
We're talking about Black Desert Online. This was a game that I was hoping would, and I've hoped this a million times with like dozens of different games, that this would be the MMORPG that I enjoyed playing.
Nope.
Now, first of all, Matt, one thing that you told me before we started recording today was that this game's actually been available for years overseas.
Yeah, as I understand it, it's been around for a long time in Japan and Korea.
I had no idea. I
and
thought
this is the English launch.
Gotcha. I had no idea.
Because there's tons of like guilds. I mean, there's clearly established players in this game already, because it's been around for a long time, for a while. So I actually I bought the base version, the $30 base version, because I was excited because it's an action-based, MMO, and I like, action-based combat more, and I like the look of it and all that.
That's what drew me to it.
Yeah.
I watched it, and it looked like I was watching somebody play like Devil May Cry or something.
Yeah, you're not. Let's put it that way. First off, I mean, you can use a controller, but it doesn't really work too well. Like, you really want to stick to the
you can't play an MMORPG.
No, it's too many keyboard controls. So you're stuck to doing that thing where like you have to use the WASD with the combos and the mouse buttons, and it's just
modifiers.
But it's all kind of like it's all links. It's not like real improvised combos. It's like things just like link into each other. So you're sort of just typing instead of comboing as you need to. And like it still feels like a standard MMO in a lot of ways.
But it moves so fast. Like even just watching the gameplay footage here, it doesn't look like an MMORPG at all.
But here's the thing: like these are pretty advanced skills. So early on, I played a few hours of it, and early on, it's just like you just bow, shoot, dodge to side, shoot.
Yeah.
It's and I didn't play. I played the wizard, and I played an archer, and here's the thing. It is the jankiest thing I've played all year. It is such garbage in terms of like how it feels to play it.
And this wasn't free. This cost $30.
I paid $30. But
and most MMORPGs now are free.
Yeah, it feels like it should be free to play. Put it that way. But I was shocked how long it had been around because it's just not there. And like, here's the thing. My PC has 2 Titan X's in it. It is a beast. It is. On that 3D Mark thing where you have to test over...
Oh, no, your computer. You don't even have to explain.
Yeah, you have to test over 9,000. Mine tests at like 21,000.
You literally have about as powerful of a PC as you can buy.
Yeah, so I put it on Ultra. It's running at 60 frames at 1440. It's great. It looks, it's all running well. And I'm looking around, I'm running around, and all the ground clutter, like flowers and barrels and, all the little, objects around, they're popping in like 6 feet away from me. Like the not even like level of detail, because like that stuff's happening at a normal distance, but like all the like the little like the furniture and everything that kind of makes an area look real. Right, it's just popping up like far enough away that like you could hit it with a rock. Like it's really close. And so I'm like, oh, so there's like a high-end checkbox that's like, okay, this stuff is like. It's beta. Some of it's like in beta. The effects aren't totally like tested, so it might mess up your performance. So I click it. Performance goes down to about 40 frames a second.
On your machine.
On my machine, and it doesn't fix anything.
Wow.
It just I can see like structures like a mile down, but the barrels and shit are still popping up 6 feet away from me.
Oh, you know what we forgot to mention? When you first log in for the first time, what do you have to agree to?
When you first log in, there's like the usual like EULA agreement, all that, but there's another little agreement thing that you have to click that says you agree that by logging in and playing this first time, you will not ask for a refund, which should have been a red flag and a half to me. But I was in new game excitement mode and I didn't care.
No, this game has been getting a ton of hype, man. Like
it has.
A lot of people have been talking about
because
it
the videos look good.
It
like
really
it looks cool to
yeah.
watch it. It's very entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
But playing it feels like it felt floaty and weird and like there's a like.
It's like an MMORPG, like all of them.
But but like and I looked up like there's like I look up on the Reddit for like the pop-in thing, and it's just people.
Well, you can see it in the trailer here. Look at all that.
Look at all that. Look at all the drawing there, and it's like, it's even in the cinemas. Like even in the cinemas, it looks like that. And I'm like, so I look it up, and there's threads about it on the Reddit, and like there's posts about it from like 2014, and like people are like, what's with the pop-in? Am I missing like an option or something? And people are like, no, we think that's just what the engine's like.
And they're like,
are they going to fix it? And they're like, probably not. And I'm like, well, what? Like, and it's just, and it's still early. I'm sure eventually once you get into it, like, there's probably a lot to do. And you do the fishing, you do the cooking, you do like a lot of the mundane stuff and level it up, and there's leaderboards for it and all that. But like early on, like it's literally just like the same old MMO. Like go kill 4 wolves, and like I go there, and there's like 20 of us all standing around a group of respawning wolves, just shooting and hacking them all to death. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And it's so like weird and hard to kind of navigate like smoothly that there's actually an auto navigate option where you just click on this button on the button of a running person on the quest panel, and your character just runs there like automatically. You don't even have to do anything. You just like let them run, and like. In Witcher 3, like Geralt has that like inertia where he kind of like slows down and like speeds up. So in this game you have that, but it's like 4 times as much inertia. So like if you like say, okay, I'm going to stop now, you like take your hand off the W button, and like it takes them like almost 20 yards to like come to a halt. It's weird. And
it sounds just like every other MMORPG.
Pretty much. I mean, and everybody's got the stripper-tastic outfits. The more armor you put on, the less pants you have on. It's that usual thing. It's just and the character creator is like, it's weird. It's like super.
It's pretty
detailed.
robust.
It's highly robust, but you can't really do anything with it because it's like you can make a hilariously ugly character, or you can make like. Like if you really know what you're after, you can make like I've seen people make like, recreations of like celebrities and stuff, and it looks really close.
It was like the Fallout 4
you can't just like kind of mess with something and come up with something cool.
Yeah.
Like because like you have to have an image in your head.
Fallout 4 was like that. Like it was so many options that it was very difficult to make something that looked good.
Yeah. And then like you don't even really see the character that much, because you're looking at the back of their head.
Yeah.
So no, I played it for about 3 or 4 hours, and I.
Well, I guess I can just say screw it. I don't need to play
I
it.
do not recommend it.
Yeah.
Do not recommend it.
I'm glad you saved me.
I
literally had been pretty much fooled. I hate to admit it, but
I got totally fooled on this one.
The marketing for this game fooled me, and I'm a pretty shrewd, pessimistic kind of guy when it comes to this stuff, but that game pulled it over my eyes pretty good, man. I really thought it was something different. Like, and it looks gorgeous. Like,
it really does.
It's just crazy. It just goes to show, like, and we'll talk about this with the Division here in a little bit, like.
But I'm just saying, like, when you're doing these combos and doing all that stuff, to me at least, as someone who plays a lot of hack and slash kind of Devil May Cry styles, like, you don't feel like you're in control. This is not...
It's the MMO thing, where you feel like it's all floaty and like it's not
responsive. This is not Dragon's Dogma, you know? And it's not like I was really expecting it to be Dragon's Dogma, but I was expecting to kind of meet me halfway between, like, MMO and Dragon's Dogma, and it doesn't.
So the wait goes on for an MMORPG that has visceral, immediate, responsive combat.
Yes. In terms of, like, melee, at least.
Yeah.
Like,
ranged, it's hard to screw that up.
Right. Well, we'll talk about it later, but I was just talking about that last night with my friend when I was playing The Division. I'm like, if someone would make a game as responsive and you know, with as good a feel as this MMO, if you want to call The Division MMO, but like
it is.
Yeah. But it's like, if someone would make something that felt this good with swords, I'd play it forever.
Oh, we'll get to that in a little bit. But so I guess you would not recommend Black Desert Online at all to anybody.
I wouldn't. I
would
like my $30 back is what I'd like.
Do you think maybe people who are just cool with that kind of style of MMO combat, even they wouldn't like it? Like,
no, I don't think it's out of the realm of like expectation in that genre, especially if you're kind of expecting like a free-to-play Korean MMO with more production value, because it does look good if you can get over the draw and pop-in problem, which and I'm not a graphics horror person at all, but like for some reason that really bugs me. Like the fact that like I run by a house and the brick texture is just drawing in as I run past it, like drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, especially when you spend as much as you did on your rig.
Right. I mean, and like if you take the high-end effects of it, runs at 60 frames a second, but all the detail is weird, and you're running through like a field of like tall grass. It's just this constant blur of texture changing, and it doesn't look good at all. Yeah. And it sucks because like, you know, one of the things I like about MMOs, especially MMOs with good, you know, artistic, and it does have a great art design to it in terms of the environments. Like I love standing around in the environments and like looking at the different areas and places and like, the snow world looks good and this looks good. Like, but I can't do that in this game because it all just draws in so ugly and right there in front of me, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't. I'd say don't
$30.
spend $30. I mean, you could also spend $50 to get like the super deluxe one that gets you like a free horse or something.
I can't believe they would charge for an MMO that's that buggy.
Well, it's not. I don't know if it's buggy. It's just,
to me, that's buggy. Objects drawing in.
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean,
that's buggy.
I mean, I did run into a quest early on. It was basically a training quest of like how to do certain things, and it was like it had you attacking training dummies. And the quest, not only was the quest bugged to the point that you had to, if you did the quest and it didn't work, you had to quit the quest and get it again and do it again and hope it worked this time. When you get the quest description tells you if you do this quest and it doesn't work, quit it and get it again and try it again. I'm like, the actual quest description tells you if this doesn't work, try it a second time.
Oh my gosh.
So...
yeah, I think that's all you need to know, Sifters. There you go. Stay away. They sent me like a beta invite. I don't know if that actually is like a free copy of the game or not.
I don't know. I wasn't in the beta at all.
But,
I just bought a copy.
I don't think I'm going to try it after that.
And no offense to anybody who happens to be playing it and is really enjoying it, because I'm sure, it's not, I'm sure there's elements of this. There's just parts of this game I can't get past, and it drives me nuts. But like, if you're loving it, more power to you, because I wish I was you.
Just what you told me, I know it's not.
Because at this point, I wish I'd just eaten that $30. Like it was a waste of time.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about Nintendo Direct. This was one of those cases where the show recorded one day, the Direct happened basically the very next day. Would have been nice to be able to get it in last week. The news is kind of a little old, but we still want to talk about it.
Well, that's the funny thing is, like, when you sent the rundown for the show, I was like, oh, wow, that was so long ago.
It was like 5 days ago.
It was nothing. It was 5, 6 days ago.
That's the way the industry is, though. Yeah. It's like so much happens, especially if you're on, like, Sifted or whatever. You see so much content going through that it's like 3 days seems like 3 weeks sometimes when you see so much. So let's talk a lot about some of the stuff. First, let's talk about Star Fox Zero, a game I have
0 copies sold.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that might change actually. So I've been down on this game. I've made no qualms about the fact that the game hasn't been exciting to me the way it's been shown in the past, the way it was shown at E3 last year. Well, here's one thing I will say is Nintendo took a lot of the criticism to heart. And it has basically just transformed the game into Star Fox 64 2.
Yep.
Which I am 1,000% okay with.
I mean, I was always going to buy this game.
Well, I was going to play it no matter what.
Because I like Star Fox, and I liked what I played at E3 last year, so, and I get the criticisms of it. I didn't disagree with them, but I still enjoyed it, and I was going to play it anyway. But what they showed on the Direct is like, oh, wow.
It's
there's
Star
a lot
Fox
of good
64.
stuff in here.
Yeah. Well, the big important thing is that...
all the alternate routes. And,
right.
I mean, when they showed the map of the thing, I'm like, did they just show Star Fox 64 by accident?
That tugged on my fanboy heartstrings a little bit when I saw that map. I was like, oh,
all you need to do is put Lilat in the bottom left and Venom in the upper right, and I'm in.
Right there, they're showing it right now. I played Star Fox 64. I mean, look, if you got good at the game, you could beat it in a couple hours.
Oh, yeah, and I used to at Toys R Us on a regular basis.
I played that game probably 20 or 30 times.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was not only are there branching paths as far as which planet you choose to go to next, in the levels, there's branching paths that you can take that will take you to different bosses that then, when you go back to that map screen, provides a new option to go to a different planet. So there's all these different ways that you can kind of make your way through the campaign. I was very, very excited to hear this news. The game still looks like ass to me. There's just no getting around it. The one level they show, you shoot those what are those plants that eat insects? What are they called?
Like Venus flytraps?
Venus flytraps. You shoot those, and then they open up, and they just disappear.
Yeah.
What is up with this game's graphics, man? I don't get it. It is the worst looking first
I have
part.
no explanation for this, especially when there's a lot of stuff on the Wii U that looks way better.
Exactly. I just have no idea what they're thinking. Look, there's hardly any shadows for anything in the game. It is just a bottom of the barrel game graphically, but it looks like it's got that Star Fox DNA now. Star Fox 64 DNA anyway. And I am now officially hyped for this game, Matt.
Yeah?
Yep, the Direct totally changed my mind on this game.
You're not just saying that because you're so excited for Star Fox Guard?
No. Nice segue, though. So Project Guard, this weird game that they had shown for a couple E3s, it was basically just this weird multiplayer game where you have a maze and all these cameras hidden in a maze, and the robot, it's a tower defense game.
Tower defense crossed with Five Nights at Freddy's, basically.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's the best way to put it. And so the weird thing was, they showed it at E3. We'd never see it at all until next E3 when you're like, are we going to see it again? And they did show it again. And then you didn't see it again. And here's E3's rolling right back around again. So, but they would always remain on their release list. Whenever they would put out their official, these are the games we're putting out in 2016, it would say Project Guard. Well, they basically slapped a Star Fox skin on it, and now it's called Star Fox Guard. So, pretty cool idea, pretty unique idea. I think, does it come free with Star Fox Zero?
It said it was bundled with it, so
yeah,
maybe?
But I don't know if you have to pay extra for the bundle. We probably
know.
should have known that before we did this show. My apologies for that. It's either bundled in with the game, but I'm not. I know it comes with the game, and you can choose.
My pre-order on Amazon didn't change, so I don't know if they put a different SKU up or something.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised.
You buy them separately digitally, it sounds like.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think it comes bundled if you buy the retail of Star Fox Zero. If you buy it digitally, you can buy them separately. So if you just want to buy Project Guard or you whatever, I guess they're being flexible with the pricing on it, but. Game looks cool. It's not going to set the world on fire. I think they made the right move by bundling it in with Star Fox Zero.
It looks like the physical copy is 60 and comes with both.
That's what I figured. So we had it right. We got there eventually.
According to Cheater Hater, so you know it's right.
You know it's right. So this game looks cool. We still haven't seen Project Giant Robot. I wonder if that game's...
No. What could that be mixed in with?
Nothing. I think they'll cancel that game.
You think it won't be
Did you play it?
No. You don't think it'll end up being Giant Zelda Robot?
I don't know. That game was so awful. It was so awkward to play and just weird. It was It was funny watching people try to play it at E3 because it's like a robot fighting game, and you think it's like going to have all this action and energy, and people when they go to play it, they're like, "Yeah, we're going to fight robots," and then the robots go, and then like when they tumble, they just slowly fall over. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that game will be canceled.
I need a new Robot Alchemic Drive.
Oh, yeah.
I need it now, by the way.
Rad.
Yes. A robot killed grandma.
Yeah.
I need some of that.
So Star Fox Guard, that's just icing on the cake for me for Star Fox Zero. I'm really excited for the game now. The Nintendo Direct worked. It actually changed my mind on one of Nintendo's games. So good job there. Let's move on.
The delay seems to have been a good move.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really good move. Because if they had released it the way that I played it at E3 last year, I would probably never have recommended it for people to buy. I still may not, but at least it has a chance now.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to put it. Let's move on. A brand new game debut, but I had mentioned this earlier in the show, is actually outed by a journalist. Paper Mario Color Splash. New Paper Mario... Is it an RPG? Not really.
Kinda.
I mean, guess.
You still do these, the fights the way they always did. I mean, I don't know. I've been out of after 1,000 Year Door. I think it was all just downhill from there.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I liked 1,000 Year Door.
Oh, 1,000 Year Door was great, but I think that's the pinnacle of the series.
That's kind of where I don't know. I wouldn't say it peaked there, but that's where that was the last point before it started its drastic downward slide. I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, I didn't like the Wii one that was mostly just like a platformer. It wasn't what I wanted.
And I feel like this is kind of like that.
A little bit.
There's a mechanic. There's like a paint hammer that you use in the game that has like an effect on enemies and the environments. There's a card element to the game. It's a nice filler for Nintendo in a year that they need fillers.
Yeah, better than nothing.
Yeah, but I don't see it setting the world on fire.
No, it's a little more epic Mickey than they maybe wanted it to be, I think.
Yeah. Still, I mean, if you're a Wii owner and you're looking for something to play, at least it does provide something for you to do. I like the art. I think the game looks good graphically. I think they do the paper style pretty well. That's one of the things that I've always liked about this series is how they play out the paper aesthetic throughout like everything. Sometimes you forget that it's like supposed to be built out of paper, and then like a big massive paper airplane will like fly by, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so again, a nice filler for Nintendo. Its software library is pretty light this year. They needed something, and they got it. It's actually coming not too long from now.
No.
Here's the thing here's what I should have mentioned about this, and the reason it says not so fast at the bottom of the screen right now is because we had kind of written Nintendo off this year. I had, and I feel like on the show both of us kind of had collectively. But look, all these games that we're talking about right now and that were in the Direct are all coming like before the summertime. So this game too, the new Paper Mario coming before end of summer. Same with Star Fox, same with Star Fox Guard, same with the next game we're going to talk about, Metroid Prime Federation Force. Another game that was in this Direct where my opinion went from to hey. Look, I know the uproar about this game and the stupid petitions and the people going on the YouTube channel and voting the videos down. Stop it. You're being stupid. I think this game looks freaking awesome for a 3DS game, man. I am really, really excited for this. Like, it's made by the people who made Super Mario Strikers and Punch-Out for the Wii. Obviously, with Mario Strikers, they have a good multiplayer pedigree. They know kind of that secret sauce that gets people to keep playing games. People are pissed off because it's set in the Metroid universe and you don't play as Sam. I don't really care. Like, I just look at it as like, is this game look like it's going to be a good game or does it look like it's going to be a bad game? I think for a 3DS game, the game looks flippin' awesome. They've rebuilt the controls to work with the analog nub on the new 3DS. I don't know what that means for people who try to play it on the old 3DS.
Yeah, that's my question. I guess you just use the stylus.
Which sucks.
Yeah.
That's the worst, trying to use like the stylus on the touchscreen to like for your look, basically. That's usually how it works. Then you move with the D-pad. But I don't know. They had lengthy demo. It was like 6-7 minutes long. They showed it off. It graphically is probably the best looking 3DS game I've ever seen, at least for polygonal 3DS games. It looks fast. The frame rate looks great. A lot of things that they talked about. There's a lot of depth to it. There's like tons of multiplayer, like online stuff. There's like share play where you can play with other people who don't even own the game, like with some of the modes. Like, it just looks like a AAA Nintendo handheld game that also happens to be based in the Metroid universe without Samus. So, again, that's game number 2 where it was really low on my scale, and after watching the Nintendo Direct, I'm really, really excited for this game, and I can't wait until it shows up in the mail and I can start playing it. So, what are your impressions of it, Matt?
Give me a real Metroid game or go away.
Really?
Don't care.
So you fall into the camp. Why, though?
I don't think that this game shouldn't exist. Like I don't think they should cancel it because it doesn't deserve the Metroid name or whatever the hell that is. I just don't. I don't want to play a multiplayer thing on my DS. All I can see when I watch that game, while it is probably one of the best looking 3DS games, no question. And it's nice to see some of the Prime designs back.
Yeah.
All I can see when I watch those videos is hand cramps. Like I don't want to play it on that system. Maybe if it was like a Wii U kind of like on, like Wii U, e-store exclusive or whatever, I might play it like that way. But like I don't want to play it on that system. And frankly,
yeah, I don't have the new 3DS either. I still have like the original launch version of the 3DS.
And frankly, like, again, as Metroid is probably my favorite Nintendo franchise. Period.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And Other M was a travesty and a debacle, and
I would not agree with that. I actually enjoyed Other M.
I hate that game
really
more than I can possibly explain.
I enjoyed it. See, I'm not the type of person it's like that looks at IPs and like tries to protect them or guard them, or I don't even really care if like what a lot of people say, oh, they're ruining the IP. Or
I don't think they ruined the IP. I think it's a shitty game.
I didn't think it was though. I enjoyed playing that game. It wasn't like a AAA, like 9 out of 10 or whatever.
Look,
but it wasn't a bad game.
Look, and I'll leave aside all my complaints about the story in that game because it's a whole different kettle of fish.
No, that was a joke. The story was terrible.
My problem is the whole thing, and everybody complains, and it is a problem where like she has all her upgrades, but she will only use them when Adam activates them for
right.
Approves them, which is bullshit because Samus wouldn't do that. But like the problem with that is a cheap way of not having us find all the upgrades, which means you have less stuff to explore, you have less area to look around. Like that, to me, Metroid is go find this thing that then lets you get to the next area. And instead, this is just like, oh, just turn the power bombs on.
Right, but see what you're saying is like you're comparing it to what your expectations are of a Metroid game. I'm just saying, as a side-scrolling action-adventure game, I thought it was a decent game. I'm not saying it was perfect for the Metroid universe. I'm just saying if it didn't have the Metroid name on it, I enjoyed the game.
Well, I have higher expectations of something with the Metroid name on it.
Yeah.
So but my problem also with Other M is like, yeah, Other M was a bad Metroid game, but then like Nintendo kind of retreated into its shell and won't make another one.
Yeah.
Like it's like, well, hey, maybe you should go back to the basics and
Well, it's just like Star Fox. They let Namco Bandai, when it was called Namco Bandai, make Star Fox Assault in tanks, and so Nintendo's like, well, it's not done. It's not going to do well. It does tend to jump to conclusions based upon poor decisions it made prior.
Yeah, and it's like, look. And Federation Force is fine. If you want to make that, I don't know if it began as a Metroid game or whatever. You want to make that, great. But I don't care.
I can see your concern where if
I'm not concerned.
Let me finish. Where if the game tanks based upon the way Nintendo is operated, it could mean that we don't get another legit Metroid. Mm-hmm. I can see that concern definitely.
Yeah. And it's an irrational reaction to it.
I don't think it is though, based upon Nintendo's
I think it is an irrational reaction, on Nintendo's part. But I think it's also the likely one. Yeah. If it doesn't sell. I don't
know though. They have been even in this presentation, they're still trying to sell it to Metroid fans.
Right, but I don't.
They bring out the producer of pretty much every Metroid ever to say this is very much in the Metroid universe and blah blah. And
I'm sure it is, but I don't give a shit. Yeah. If I'm not playing as Samus, I don't care. Okay, Metroid is a lonely solo adventure game to me, and I don't care about a multiplayer mode in it. And now the multiplayer mode is the whole fucking game. I played through Hunters. That's my least favorite in the series, besides Other M.
That game was really hard to play.
But I like Metroid Pinball better than Metroid Hunters.
Metroid Pinball is great.
Fun. But that's my real concern. My real problem with it is it's just not what I want from Metroid.
It looks like a Metroid game watching
it does,
this footage.
But it's like if it wasn't labeled Metroid, I also wouldn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I wouldn't play it whether it was called Metroid or not. So if you want to call something Metroid, if I don't see that red and yellow suit of armor, like I'm already gone.
You don't see it anyways, first person.
True, but I see the arm,
right,
and sometimes like the camera pans.
Yeah.
I love Metroid Prime. I think Metroid Prime is beautiful.
It is, yeah, timeless. All right, let's move on.
No hate for Federation Force. I'm not going to play it.
Yeah,
I don't have time for a game I'm only marginally interested in.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Let's move on. Another game debut: Kirby Planet Robobot.
Didn't see this one coming.
No. 3DS game, side-scrolling 3DS game, starring the pink puffball. The twist in this one is that he gets a mech suit that he can transform into.
Because of course he does.
The big surprise for me with this game is the extensive multiplayer options, like online, like multiplayer cooperative boss battles. Basically, you and 3 friends can team up and take on huge, massive bosses together. And this is another game, too, that people can play with you even if they don't own the game in certain limited modes. Kirby, Matt, what's your overall take on Kirby? Because me personally, like, he's probably my least favorite Nintendo mascot.
I like Kirby.
Yeah?
To be fair, I haven't played a Kirby game since, like, the GBA. But, like, because here's the thing.
That's not a glowing endorsement.
Well, I don't, like, really... Because I feel like once you play like maybe 2 Kirby games, you kind of got it.
Yeah.
Like you got it down.
Yeah.
You want to talk about like a series that's afraid to break the fucking mold. Like,
Yeah.
all the Kirby games. I mean, because he's like he jumps, he floats, he sucks you in, and he takes your power. Like that's.
Well, when they do
what else
break
have you
the
got?
mold, he
Break the
jumps
mold, he
into
gets a fucking mech suit. But like, but I like Kirby, and I like him as a character. I like him as kind of a mascot. I think he's adorable no matter what he does. My favorite thing in well, I didn't do it, but when I used to play Smash Brothers Melee a lot more, one of my friends would religiously play Kirby, and every time he would hit you with that stupid brick move, and you'd knock you all the way, he'd do the taunt where Kirby goes, "Hi!" Like that whole thing. And I'm like, it's great. Like, I love Kirby.
That's the stuff I love about video games, those moments.
But this is very unexpected, and it might get me. Giant mechs are a thing I enjoy, and Kirby being cute in a giant mech is a thing I would probably enjoy. So yeah, I'll keep my eye on it.
I have very little interest in this game at all. Of course, there's amiibo support. They're putting out 4 new Kirby amiibo in honor of this game, which is probably the bigger story, honestly, is that there's 4 new amiibo announced.
I inhaled Link and took I don't inhaled Kirby and copied this. Yeah.
Well, basically, yeah, you can drop any amiibo on your 3DS, and it will bring in elements from those games into.
I'm more questioning the choice of the word inhaled.
Yeah.
Like this makes it sound like he's snorting lines of Link. That's not really the way I want to go with Kirby at this point.
There's the 4 new amiibo you're seeing right now. Yeah, I mean, it could be great. Again, Kirby's one of my least favorite properties that Nintendo does. Like you said, the series doesn't really move on very drastically. It's been kind of the same ever since the first game.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to someone talking about how Nintendo's games never drop in price.
Yeah.
They just sort of disappear, and then they get more expensive on the secondary market.
Yeah.
And my example was I wanted to get the N64 Kirby game, the Crystal Shards or Crystal Star, or whatever it was.
Crystal Shards.
And I want because it was like $59, and I didn't want to spend that much for a Kirby game. And so I was like, oh wait, and never 2 years go by, 59, and one day it's gone. It was just not at Toys R Us anymore. It was just like, that was it. The price never dropped. They just like sold the last one, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, they don't.
And so I never actually did get that game or play it. And I'm like, you know what? I never did get that game. I'm going to look it up on YouTube. I looked it up, and I'm like, oh my God.
You looked it up on eBay.
No, on YouTube. I looked up a video of it to watch it, because I'd never even seen it in motion, I realized.
Got you.
And I watched it, I'm like, well, maybe it's a good thing I did not buy this game.
I wonder what it's going for on eBay now.
Oh, probably some obscene amount of... sealed, a Nintendo game from that era is going to probably run you at least $100.
Yeah.
Even if it's Kirby.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm lukewarm on that one. Again, the 3DS needs as many games as it can get.
Why I like Kirby more than I probably normally would for like a game equivalent to that is I love the music in those games.
Yeah.
The music in the Kirby games just like it's the bounciest, happiest kind of like Like it's like we're on a fun adventure, and like we're not even going to try to take this shit seriously, and I love that. I think that's really fun.
All right, let's move on to the last game, and I just kind of threw this in here because it's kind of interesting. So, Pocket Card Jockey.
I just want to give a shout out to Login Lost for pointing out that Kirby sucked Mario. This doesn't really go down well with the kids. It's good point. Good point. Maybe Inhaled is the way to go with that.
That is pretty good. Who said that?
That was Login Lost.
Nice work. Yeah. So the last game we're going to talk about is Pocket Card Jockey. This game is from Game Freak, the creators of Pokemon. And the most recently released, what was it called? Something the Badass Elephant? What was that
Tembo
game?
the Badass Elephant. Yeah.
Yeah. That was their other recent game. So this game is a horse racing simulation where you play solitaire. And as you play solitaire, your horse will run faster.
Sure.
Yep. You can't make that one up.
No. I don't know if I'm going to play it, but I'm probably going to get it for my mom for Christmas.
It was also pretty uncomfortable to watch Bill Trinan try to describe the horse breeding element of the game.
I feel like Bill, I love Bill. Yeah. He's great, but I feel like the whole direct was like Bill needs to get more comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah, he's been doing it a lot.
He has.
He still isn't. He just hasn't got there.
There's every once in a while you see him like look off to the teleprompter or something.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's
so hard.
Yeah, if you've never done that, it's really hard. Like it's not natural to read while you're trying to speak what you're reading and try to still look like you're looking at
I can't do it.
You're doing like 4 things at once, and it's very hard.
I cannot.
It is a skill, no question.
Oh, it is really a skill, man. Try it sometime. Stare into a camera and try to read something and look natural.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Good luck with that one.
Doesn't happen. I don't want to. It's coming off of Iwata, who was so natural in front of the camera.
Yeah.
It's still the Nintendo Directs are still feel like an adjustment to me.
It was like working with Adam Sessler and watching him read teleprompters. It was just freaking mind blowing.
Like magic.
You're just like, how do you do it?
I don't know. And like he does it with copy he's never seen before.
When I was in college,
like
we had like a broadcasting class where we tried to learn how to read off a teleprompter. I still have like the VHS tape from that class, and it is so bad.
Yeah.
Like, I would keep raising my one eyebrow because I thought I thought that like I was trying to like speak with my face. It was so bad. Like, it is a skill, man. People who can read teleprompters naturally, it's a skill.
Anytime I've had to do anything with like that would have possibly involved a teleprompter, I just memorized the
yeah,
text
exactly,
because it's easier.
That's the only way. That's the only way I can do it. So. Overall, what do you grade this Nintendo Direct? There's a ton of other stuff, by the way. We just scratched the surface. Like Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem is coming to the U.S. Japanese only. They're not going to translate it.
Probably not surprising. My big story from the Direct was the Super Nintendo games on Virtual Console.
For 3DS.
For 3DS, which is fine, because here's the thing.
There's a couple for Wii U, but...
Yeah, but mostly it's, they're rolling out for 3DS. My big thing is finally A Link to the Past, because I've always been... Look, with the exception of... the last 3 major console releases, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword, you can play every other mainline Zelda game on the 3DS.
Yeah.
Except Link to the Past. And I'm
you're right.
why can't I play Link to the Past? And
yeah.
finally, here we go. You can have that whole series almost on that one system, and that's great. My only question is, how come Europe gets it this week or next week, and we have to wait till April 14th, tax day?
Yeah, that makes
sense.
Yeah. There was that. They showed Dragon Quest VII for 3DS.
Yep, that looks good.
Which has been
full
hard.
Remake. Huge.
Completely remade, rewrote the story, the whole shebang. I mean, it was a... So, I'll give my grade first. Like, I will give this Nintendo Direct, like, a B+. Like,
that's what I would give it to.
It's one of the best ones I've seen in a long time. And, going into this, I thought Nintendo's 2016 was just garbage. Or not even just garbage. It was just nothing.
Yeah, they came out... they came out of nowhere. And, I feel like Ronda Rousey at this point. I didn't see that kick coming.
Yeah. I mean, all these games, too, are coming out, like, before the end of the summer. So, I don't know. Maybe things are looking up a little bit for Nintendo platforms in 2016
I don't know.
compared to what I was thinking initially.
Maybe they've really gotten, maybe it's irrational, but it kind of makes me feel a little better about what the NX might be.
I mean, look,
it looks like their head's in the right place.
There's Pokken Tournament that's coming. They did a thing on that. Obviously, they just released Twilight Princess HD. It was a great direct, man. It was just wall to wall, like 30-some minutes of like tons of new games. Good looks at ones that we knew about already. Great Nintendo Direct, and good to see him getting off on the right foot after Iwata's passing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
They seem to have really regrouped.
I don't know what we're going to be playing the end of the year on either of these platforms, but
we're going to be playing Zelda, hopefully.
Yeah. We'll see about that.
On my new NX.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But as far as the first half of the year goes, Nintendo is in a much better position than I had originally thought. So, kudos.
I'm going to be playing my Nintendo systems more than my Xbox, it looks like.
Yeah. Letter grade for the Direct. You want to give one?
I'll also go with B+.
All right. Let's move on to the last topic, the one you guys have been staring at for the last however long, waiting for us to talk about The Division. So we've obviously we talked about the beta already on the show. We talked about last week about the fact that there wouldn't be any reviews.
Which does not seem to have mattered.
Big story today. The Division launched the best first 24 hours for a game in the history of Ubisoft.
That's a lot.
That is saying something.
And Watch Dogs sold like 4 million in the first week.
Yeah.
So we're looking somewhere in that range.
Yeah. So there's lots of people out there who bought this game with no. There is still not a single review because you can't. There's no way.
It hasn't been long enough.
There's no way somebody. I mean, I'm looking at for our game eval like early next week probably, and that's after I play for the next 2 days, play like a maniac on Saturday and all day Sunday. Hopefully, finish it off on Monday. Get the game eval up on Tuesday.
I mean, I'm level 13 already, but I haven't even touched the Dark Zone.
What's the level cap's 26? Is that right?
30, I thought.
30. Okay. So you're, I'm right around there as well.
Yeah.
So we're both about halfway finished with.
I mean, the top zones are like 27 to 30.
Yeah, that's right.
So
what are your initial impressions, Matt? Both of us played the beta.
Well, it's interesting to come from because like a month and a half ago, I didn't care about this. Wasn't even on my radar, and I played the beta and I really liked it. So I'm like, all right, I'll try this. And so now I'm playing it. 13 levels in, about 18 hours in. I love it. And
now to sort of put your perspective in perspective, you're a big fan of Destiny.
Yeah, I like Destiny a lot, and this feels like. Even last night, running around with my friend playing it, he said, like, I wish Destiny had this much to do when it came out.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more. But the other stuff to do is also very much what we expect. I mean, of all the Ubisoft games I played in the last several years, this might be the Ubisoftiest.
Yeah.
Because really, they just combined all the things you expect from a Ubisoft game into one game. It's an open world. Cooperative and competitive shooter with a military bent with the Tom Clancy brand and 4,000 little collectible things you have to pick up across a giant map that most of which have some kind of audio diary attached to them.
Yeah.
It's like Ubisoft the design doc.
Yeah.
And like in a similar, but like, not to rip on it that way, but it does feel like you're playing like Ubisoft game.
It's the
Division,
like the penultimate Ubisoft. It's like what all the other games that they've made.
The platonic ideal of Ubisoft games is that in the same way that kind of like Watch Dogs, like a lot of people describe it as like this is like the raw engine that they make their other games out of.
Yeah.
But this one has a lot more personality, I think.
You think it does?
Than Watch Dogs, yes.
Well, then Watch Dogs, yeah. But that's one thing I would say about this game is I don't feel like it does have any personality.
No, I feel like it's riding on I think it's very solid shooting gameplay, and the dungeons, for lack of a better term, are very cool. Lots of fun. I've found some cool gear. And they differentiate how the gear feels surprisingly well, considering it's all just guns. But I've had different types of assault rifles that all played very differently to me, at least as far as that. You're a shooter fan. You know what?
I don't feel the difference.
Two similar guns can feel very different.
I don't feel the difference between like the weapon classes that much, but I can definitely feel a big difference between like an SMG and assault rifle. But all the SMGs kind of felt like they fired the same to me.
I have not stuck with SMGs at all. I've been using assault rifles for the most part and a sniper rifle, which now I find I have a decent sniper rifle, which is like the boss killer.
This game is it's very loot heavy.
Hugely
And
loot
a lot
heavy.
of your performance in this game completely depends on how lucky you get with loot. For instance, Matt, you got, like, hooked up.
Yeah, I got luck because I'm mainly using assault rifles anyway, but last night, near the end of the night, I found it was a pair of gloves that ups my assault rifle damage by 38. And an assault
Lucky you.
rifle. It was an assault rifle that was like, it was a blue Scar that, like, once I'd upgraded it with my mods, right now I'm doing 6,200 DPS.
That's like double the damage I'm doing right now.
Which is like, because one of my, it's actually great for me because one of the things that annoys me about the game a little bit is the bullet sponginess of the enemies because it's hit point based more than anything else. But now they go down in about
irrelevant.
4 shots, so it doesn't matter, But it's fun, and I will blow the flamethrower backpacks of those cleaner guys up all day.
Yeah.
That is the most satisfying thing in the game to me.
Yeah.
And it's really pretty. There's a lot,
What version are you playing?
PS4.
Yeah, me too.
And there's a lot of, it's better on the PC, obviously, but, like, there's a lot of moments in that where I'm just like, wow, this is, especially when the sun sets and, like, you see the sun, like, glinting off the fog, or there was
Or off the puddles on the ground.
There was a quick moment when we were running down an alley and the sun was at our backs, and I noticed that, like, the sun, like my shadow, like, going down the alley was, like, very diffuse and
stretching
soft
and diffusing,
and stretched.
yeah.
And when I'd move over to, like, where the wall was by the alley, it sharpened and you could see. And it's a very simple effect, but it just works.
No, lots of games don't do
really,
that, man.
No, especially not on consoles. Like, that's a piece. It's softened more than the PC does it on. The PC is obviously much sharper with it. But, like, seeing it on a PS4 game was like, oh, that's really cool. It really feels real. And when the blizzards come in and, like, the visibility goes down and it looks, and you're having firefights in the middle of that, it looks great.
The game is just packed with stuff, man. Like, there's so many things to think about and manage. You have, like, your perk trees. You have, like, these 3 wings of your base that you have to build out.
Which are all tied into your perk trees and into your mods of those perks and into...
There's attachments
everything
for guns.
connects up.
It is.
And you can craft that, or you can break them down, or you can break these down, or you can craft this separately, and then put the mod in it, and then you can. Oh my God!
You can
so
you can
much.
break down weapons that you find and just collect the parts off of them that you want to, and repurpose them for other weapons. The systems at work here, it's literally almost overwhelming at times. Like, keeping track of it all, like.
I'm glad I played the beta because, like,
yeah, me too.
It helped me. I was able to kind of figure things out before I jumped into this, and I kind of knew what I was doing already.
Yeah,
definitely helped.
The gunplay is good. Like, I feel okay with the cover system. I'm still not 1,000,000,000% like on board with it. I still feel like the covered, like, I don't feel 100% comfortable with it, like how it works for some reason. Maybe there's just an element of it that I haven't discovered or whatever, but I still feel like I can't pop off a cover when I want to, and sometimes I do pop off when I don't want to.
Well, my problem with that is, and we talked about this before the show too, is that my controller's broken for the second PS4 controller. It's this thing, and the last time it started doing, the first one when it started doing this, when I was playing Destiny. So, like, what happens is it's the left analog stick, and when you try to push right, it basically goes down right.
Yeah.
So and it hadn't been doing that when I was playing Far Cry Primal, but, like, I was playing Division, and I'm like, my guy, when I'd move right in cover, would just pop out and run the other way. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is that? And I'm like, it didn't do that in the beta. What's going on? And finally, I went to the web browser and checked it, and of course, the analog stick is all totally out of whack. So here's my my third analog stick, or my third controller. Blue, so I can differentiate it between the black one and the white one, which don't work anymore. I have Dreamcast and Saturn controllers that still work to this day, people.
Yeah,
I don't know why these things break down in a year. I actually bought the...
I know why. They're made cheaply.
Well, yeah. I actually bought, for the first time ever, I bought the protection plan for this thing.
Oh, really?
So when this one breaks in a year...
I've never bought a protection plan for anything.
So when this thing breaks in a year, I can take it back and get another one from Best Buy.
Jeez.
So that's my plan on that one. And it's sad because I think this controller, except for the longevity, I think that the DualShock 4 is a huge improvement.
I love it, yeah.
Over the previous few controllers, and I think it's the best controller of any of the platforms right now.
So let's get back to the Division.
But so I don't feel comfortable kind of judging the cover system yet because it doesn't. My
you had a
controller
broken
doesn't work
analog
right.
stick,
and it hasn't impacted it too bad because that's not the stick I use to aim with.
Right,
so that's
right.
the important part. But I just have to keep in mind that if I try to move right, I'm going to stick my head up and look like a moron. But overall, I think it feels pretty good, and it feels very Tom Clancy.
Yeah,
it reminds me
does.
of it reminds me of Ghost Recon, I guess.
I feel like there's some jank in this game, though. Like, for
Little
instance,
bit.
like there's those guys that have axes that just run at you, and normally it's not a big deal, or you just shoot them in the head and they never get anywhere near you. But eventually they have shields, and like 2 of them will run at you at a time. And anytime things get up close, it's just a mess.
Oh, yeah.
The game is a total
You have a
mess.
melee, but it's not.
It's a joke. It's
No.
like this weird elbow that you throw that like. You have to elbow someone like 5 times to knock them down or whatever. Like,
Yeah, you just have to blind fire and hope, basically.
pretty
at that
much,
point.
yeah. And if anybody gets close to you, the game, it just all breaks
Yeah.
down into a big pile of trash.
Like I played
basically.
most of yesterday. I played a lot solo the first night. The second night, I mostly played with my friend, the same guy I played Battlefront with. And like that was one of our priorities, was like watching if a guy was charging the other person.
Yeah.
Because like someone had to take him
You can't
out.
do anything.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say, too, is the game is challenging. Like, I've been playing all the single-player stuff by myself, and one thing I will say I'm pretty pissed off about is Ubisoft totally could have sent this out early for review. Like, I've been playing all the missions by myself, and it's challenging. Like, I've called some people in and made the game a lot easier, although it does scale.
Oh, it
if you
definitely
bring
scales.
people in, they'll bring in more enemies for you to fight. But it does make it easier still if you have more people.
More eyeballs definitely helps, no matter how many guys they throw at you.
For sure. Playing this by yourself, though, on the campaign, it's tough.
It is.
There's a lot of sections where I've had to do them over and over, and something that really bothers me about this game is that you can't, like, pause it. And then the other part of it, too, is, like, a lot of, like, the really involving missions have, like, multiple parts, like, multiple checkpoints. And then you get to, like, the end where you have to fight the boss or whatever, and it's like, I'm petrified to say, like, I don't know if it's actually saving the game. Like, if I turn off the game and leave and come back later, do I have to start that whole mission over? Or will that checkpoint right before the boss, like, start me there?
I don't know.
Because these...
I've been too chicken to quit out at
That's
that
what I'm
point.
saying. Like, these missions are so long that by the time you get to the end of one, you're petrified to, like, turn off the system because you're like, man, I don't want to have to go through all that crap all over again to get back to this boss fight or whatever. And you can't, like, you know, my wife comes in from work, and I'm like, at one of these, for instance, I was right at, like, the boss. I was fighting one of the bosses, and my wife comes in, and she's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, I can't really, like, pause the game, and I can't really talk to you because they're going to keep attacking me. Like, it's just really weird.
Well, a similar thing happened to me where we were
You're
playing...
trapped playing the
Right.
game,
Well, we were
kinda.
playing because we had just started like one of the missions, like one of the the story missions, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So we're about a quarter of the way into this thing, and I didn't realize that like how late it had gotten. And my girlfriend comes in, she's like, "Dinner time," and she brought dinner like to and so like I'm like, well, we can't stop, and she knows the guy that I was playing with. I'm like, well, we can't stop. I don't want to leave him hanging.
Yeah.
So I'm still playing and so we finished the thing, and I'm trying to eat and and finally we finish, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a break and finish eating. And I look, and my girlfriend's gone, and I go in, I'm like, oh, you can take your food back and we can finish eating if you want. She's like, no, I finished my food and like left
Like an
while you
hour
were there.
ago.
And like while you were there, I'm like, you finished all that? She's like, yeah, like that took like an hour. Like, what do you? I've been in here for like doing other things for like. I'm like,
Wow.
really?
The
Like,
time just whizzed right on by.
I didn't notice it. I didn't even see her finish eating or leave.
Yeah.
Like that's how focused I was on it. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm an asshole. On the other hand, like, that's an absorbing game.
It is, yeah. Well, you have to pay a lot of attention in this game because you can just stumble across...
Situational awareness is huge.
You can just stumble across, like, pockets of enemies that'll just kill you.
Yeah.
Like, and that's one, like, it's a double-edged sword. Like, I like the fact that you always have to stay on your toes. You never know what's going to happen. But I also don't like the fact that it, like, you have to, like, give your life completely to it while you're playing it. Like...
Well, on the other hand, like, dying really doesn't have any penalty.
Yeah, I mean, you just go back to a checkpoint unless
It's
you
not
don't
like-
feel like playing through that checkpoint again. And believe me, there are some battles that I got to the point where I did not want to fight him again.
My problem, the only times I've really died a lot were the first night after the servers went down after like.
Well, when you're
a
dealing
while.
3,000 damage, I could see, or
Well,
6,000 damage.
This was early on though. This was very early on. I mean, well, first off, I got to Manhattan. I got to level 5. The servers went down, and when they came back up about an hour later on launch night, I was level 1 again. and had only finished one mission, so I had to redo all that. So thanks a lot for that. But
that sucks, by the way.
The servers were kind of like janky for the rest of the night, and there were a lot of times I died that first night because it would do that thing where like the servers sort of like had a hiccup, and like the whole game sort of freezes, and you get the enemies are sort of running in place, and I'm moving up and I can't do anything, and all of a sudden, the server catches up or whatever, and like suddenly it's like, oh well, because I had no input, the server that wasn't listening to me, I had no way to control the guy. My guy just stood there while the enemies came in and just shot him to death.
Yeah.
And so I died like 7 or 8 times the first night because of that specifically.
Yeah. Oh, I've died a bunch in this game, man.
But I have not died too much beyond that. Like
I've died. I mean, dude, it's like I've found a million ways to die in this game. Like, there's the one boss fight with...
a million ways to die on the west side, huh?
Yeah, well, there's the one boss fight where you're in, like, the warehouse, and the one guy's got the hyper-powerful, like, flamethrower.
Oh, yeah.
And then he comes in with the other guy that's a sniper, that literally he hits you once, and it takes all your health but a speck, and then his flamethrower can throw flames for, like, 100 yards, so... They put you in this square warehouse so that no matter where he is, his flamethrower is only like 5 feet away from burning you at all moments. Like, I don't know how you haven't died in this game. Like,
because when that happens,
so many ways to get
when
killed.
that happens, you go downstairs.
He's still only 40 feet away from you.
Yeah, but you just got to get more distance.
I mean, look, I beat it. I figured out how to beat it. I'm just saying, like, you're the only person I've talked to about this game that hasn't said that they've died constantly. Everyone who writes about it is like, dude, I've died over and over again. I don't know if you're like a Prodigy or something, but everybody writing about this game right now is saying that they die constantly.
I haven't died too much, but again, most of yesterday I did not play solo.
No. I played all the single-player stuff solo, which is probably stupid. I probably should partner up with people.
I mean, I haven't gone down, because I'm also, like, rolling with a healer spec. I mean, I'm going full medic on this thing.
Oh.
So anytime anything goes wrong, I just click that heal thing, and I get half a full life bar back.
And look, I feel like they've fleshed out this universe, even though it's semi-reality, very well. Like, it's very believable. The stuff that people say when you walk by, I mean, just the level of detail in the environments, like the clutter and everything inside it's amazing. But the one thing I would say is that, like, it seems like there's very little reward for looking around. Like, right now we're seeing this whole row of, like, tractor trailers. And in most games, I would see that row of tractor trailers, and I'd be like, okay, well, if I go all the way to the end of these tractor trailers, or I get in one of them, there should be loot in there. But that's not really how this game is. Like, I feel like it's not teaching me to find the loot. I waste a lot of time looking for stuff and never find anything. And most of the time, the loot is just, like, right in your path. Like, it doesn't encourage you to explore, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I've noticed, like, as I progress further, I've had to start going further off the beaten path to find the good containers. Like, you'll find, like, the little backpacks that have, like, the energy bars and stuff like that. But, like, in a couple of later missions, I've noticed that I've had to, like, oh, that stairway is not a direction I have to go for the quest. I wonder what's down here, and there's usually one of those bigger boxes down there, which it gives you a better thing usually, or at least a blue thing usually.
I just feel like, anytime I go out of the way, and after you've played a ton of games like this, you kind of start to know, like, okay, if I go down all the way to the end of this hallway, there's probably a little room with some loot in it. Like, I do that in this game, and there's never anything there.
A lot of time there isn't anything there, or it's just a backpack and I'm full of all the stuff that it wants me to pick up.
And it discourages me from wanting to continue to explore the environments. I'm like, if after the 10th time I've gone down this tangential hallway and not got anything, it's like the 11th time I think twice about it, the 15th time I just don't go down there. So for a loot-driven game, the way the loot is kind of distributed in the game, and for you to just get a random drop that, like, increased your damage like 30%, that's disheartening to me to hear that.
Part of it helps that, like, it happened to be that I was speccing basically in the direction of firearms and assault rifles anyway.
That could be.
So it's, that's just, I didn't even know you could, and there's, apparently, gloves do that. Gloves can add damage to weapon types. So I found shotgun ones and pistol ones. I mean, my friend I'm playing with, his main weapon is his pistol.
Yeah.
He's got this, like, badass, like, revolver, I think, that, like, just, like, I mean, I've seen him once, because my assault rifle can take armor off of bosses, but, like, once it gets I get the armor off, he'll two-shot a guy in the head.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just like, way faster than I could ever take the guy down. And, like, so, I mean, maybe one of the reasons I'm not dying so much is because I got a good duo
Yeah,
Butch and Sundance are cleaning up.
One thing I do like
zone.
about it is that as you level up your guns, every little thing that you kind of add to it, you do see the difference with it.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Even like that 3% stability increase, you feel it.
You can feel it, yeah. And that's something I really appreciate. In any game where you're leveling stuff up and you're grinding for loot, that's really important that when you actually do get an upgrade, that you can tell the difference when you use it. And this game does a great job of that. So that is one thing I would say. Yeah. But the other thing I would say is that, like, because it is kind of set in reality and in this setting, I've been playing, I'm probably 14, 15 hours into the game. Like, it is starting to get repetitive at this point. Like, I feel like there's only so many guys I can gun down in hoodies with, like, a baseball bat. Like, and they all say the same crap, like...
I'm hoping we run into a new faction soon.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming we do, because there's, like, 3 major factions or whatever. Right. So, and that should change it. But it's not even necessarily, like, the cleaners or whatever, the guys with the flamethrowers that, like, I'm talking about. I'm talking about just the people that you fight 95% of the time, which is dudes in hoodies with, like, axes or whatever.
Many of them named Alex,
you always
because there's that one, they say, like, they got Alex.
They
killed
like, Alex.
Did everyone named Alex in New York become, like, a looter? Like, what happened? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, and so, one thing I would say about this game is that if, like, games like Destiny turn people off, and at this point, most people, I think, who are going to buy it have probably just freaking bought it. It's almost like I wonder now if it's even worth doing a game eval for, like...
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure it's going to get the attention of some people who didn't pay attention before. They're like, oh, I guess this is big now, kind of thing.
I mean, am I enjoying this more than Destiny? Maybe a little.
I am.
Yeah.
But
I still get the... I mean, look...
in the sense that I feel like there's more to do, basically.
Yeah.
But, like, Destiny, I don't know. Does it feel better to play than Destiny? I don't think I go that
I like
far.
the gunplay in Destiny more than this. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But, Destiny's a first-person shooter. This is a third-person cover-based shooter. So, you're obviously, depending on your perspective, you're going to like one more than the other. I'm just talking about, like, the grind part of it, because I'm not a big grind gamer, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, I get tired of stuff eventually, and I'm already starting to tire of this game a little bit.
Well, my thing, I can kind of feel myself maybe if it doesn't, like, throw another twist or two at me, in terms of who I'm fighting in the next 10 hours, I could peter out on it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the fact that when I find loot, the loot is the fucking loot that I find, that's a point of Destiny.
It definitely helps, yeah. I mean, I have yet to hit the loot jackpot, so maybe if I got a nice piece of gear that, like, drastically upgraded my abilities, it might change my perspective. I have yet to get lucky in that regard, though. Have you gone into the Dark Zone yet, Matt?
I have not.
On the final retail, I haven't either. I mean, I did it a bunch in the beta, to kind of get an idea of what it's like, but I haven't really ventured there yet. I'm just kind of trying to plow through, like, the single-player missions. Mission variety, there really isn't any. It's pretty much go here, kill everybody, come back.
Everyone, it's like go here, kill everyone, or go here, activate thing, defend it from everyone, go here, pick up thing, take it here. Yeah. That's it.
Or defend this guy for a while, and then he goes back to the safe house or whatever.
Yeah. Or rescue hostages. That's the thing that I noticed was, like, because usually when you rescue a hostage, there's a loot thing in the hostage room. Sometimes the loot thing in the hostage room is a gun.
Really?
You're not a hostage if you have a gun in a bag in your fucking room. Like,
I haven't got that yet.
Like, you go in and you're like, did you notice the shotgun in the box next to you?
That's when video games go wrong.
Yeah, it's a little ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was amusing to me, and also the fact that, like, the character creation is really kind of limited.
Yeah, really limited. There's like 8 faces or whatever. For an MMO, that's a big deal, man.
Weird.
Why
also,
are only 8?
I went through, like, a lot of different combinations, like various, gender and race, and, like, they all kind of look vaguely French somehow. I don't know, because I think Massive is in Sweden, so I don't know what that's about, but, like. And then, of course, there's not many hair options, which I figure is because they know you're going to be wearing a hat 98% of the time, so who cares what your hair looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if the Dark Zone gives it legs. There's no traditional PvP in this.
Yeah,
it's like multiplayer modes. It's like Dark Zone, open world,
free-for-all, open world ganking.
Which I never really liked in Grand Theft Auto Online. I don't know how much it's going to resonate with me here. Again, I did play with it in the beta a little bit. It seemed like most of the people in the beta were a lot more friendly than when you get out with just out in the wild.
We were also having fun with, like, the fact that, like, you could hear the other player's voice, like, echoing down the street.
Yeah.
And that could be fun, like, once you're in the dark zone and can hear other... Because, like, we talk about, like, other games and what we're buying next, what movies we've seen while we're shooting guys. And I'm kind of looking forward to going through the dark zone and hearing people just, like, small talk as, like, as we, like, run through, like, trying to kill other terrorists or whatever. You know, and it's, like, the echo effects are really cool. And, like, you know, and that you can even do it if you team up with someone, talk to them, talk to each other while you're in an echo reconstruction thing.
Yeah, I don't think I've done that.
Because, you know, the echo thing, it has that weird sort of like digital thing.
Yeah.
They affect your voice.
Your voice goes through the filter.
The other person's voice comes out through the TV
cool.
speakers as, like, with that effect on it. It's really neat.
The attention to detail in this game is really good.
It's definitely there.
Yeah, just across the board. You can tell a lot of TLC went into this game. You can see that the delays paid off big time. The game's extremely polished. I haven't really come across, like, any bugs or anything.
We ran into a bad bug at one point where we were doing an echo and my friend...
Wouldn't be a Ubisoft game without at least one.
My friend accidentally opened the grenade selection window and it's stuck there and he couldn't get it off. And I'm like...
Sure it wasn't another bad analog stick?
No. His analog stick won't go up. That's his problem. So he has trouble running. So we're like, he can't run and I can't cover. We're a great team. But he was stuck on that. I'm like, well, can you fast travel? So he fast traveled back, still stuck on the grenade. I'm like, okay, log out and log back in. Comes back, still stuck on the grenade.
Really?
He had to quit the actual game, like close the game completely, and then open it again and relog in, and then it worked.
And it worked. Thank God.
Yeah, for a second, he's like,
it could
is
be
the
stuck
character
forever.
Stuck like this forever? You have to contact Ubi about it. But like, so that's the only real bug I've run into. And some of the echoes, when you get them, stay on the map. I've noticed, like a couple of them I've already, but you know, those are pretty minor for an MMO. I think there's some queues. I guess people have had to wait in some short queues here and there, but like they're handling it pretty well for their biggest launch of all time. It seems pretty solid.
You know what vibe this game gives me, and some people might consider this a compliment, some people might not. This game really reminds me of Uncharted.
Yeah.
Because it's like really the whole game is go into a room. Enemies flood into the room. You kill them all.
Shoot them in the head 3 times before they die.
Yep. Some of them wear helmets. You got to knock the helmet off first. And with Uncharted, it's like, you know, you get to that 10, 11 hour mark and the game wraps up. And usually around that 10 or 11 hour mark with Uncharted, I'm ready for the game to wrap up.
Yeah.
Like, in this game here, I am past that. And I think that's why it's starting to wear on me a little bit, is because it really is like Uncharted. It's just a big shooting gallery. You sit behind a piece of cover and the guys run in. Their AI, that's one thing that isn't great. Their AI is not the smartest. They will flank a little bit.
Flank a bit. The cleaners are smart enough to run away from the guy whose tank is on fire.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah. Otherwise, they just flood in and you just keep pressing forward until they get as close to you as they can. But
Although another little thing I really like about it is that we've noticed playing online that like random like pedestrian comments or enemy comments, I hear the same stuff my teammates hear.
Oh, you do?
And like they say the same, because a lot of times someone will say something in the game and I'll react to it. And a lot of times on online games, the people you're with are like, "What are you talking about?
What are you laughing about?"
Because they didn't
hear the same sample.
But all the samples, the voice samples, are all synced.
So everybody who's playing,
so everybody hears the same taunts from the enemies. They hear the same comments from the pedestrians.
They hear, like, "You killed Alex."
You killed Alex. So, like you can actually make fun of that, and everybody knows. Like that's surprisingly rare in a game. So like that's a level of polish that I appreciate. And we also like to make fun of the citizen. You know, if you just run by people, like there's like pedestrians are like robbing each other, and you run by with your gun, like, hey, I'm not the danger. Don't
I'll
point
like
that
stop
at me.
and I'll like protect people. Like if there's an old lady getting beat up, I'll stop and like beat up the guy who's beating up the old lady. Like there is kind of like that whole ecosystem to it where you get involved and absorbed into the whole world, and you're like, I want to protect the weak and, you know, stop the evil, and so that part of it gets me.
I've developed a compulsion to close trunks on cars.
Nice.
Like if you walk up to a car, like if in the trunk or the hood is open, your character will close it. And I'm like, oh, there should totally be an achievement for like closing 100 trunks.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. We kind of need to wrap this up. I would say, if you are not a fan of Destiny, I don't think you'll like this game. Mm-hmm. I think that is what I would say. And I only say that because I feel like most people have Destiny for their frame of reference. But, look, I wasn't a huge fan of Destiny, but I still played it all the way to the end and had a good time doing it. But when it ended, I was ready for it to end. And I kind of get that same vibe from The Division. Mm-hmm. What's your perspective?
I think we're probably on a similar wavelength in the sense that I think I like Destiny more than you did.
Yeah.
Because I played it for about 100 hours past
the
finish.
You definitely liked it a lot more than I did.
But eventually I kind of petered out because I'd done everything except the raid, and I couldn't get enough people together to do the raid, to finish it repeatedly to get stuff. And at a certain point I realized, like, oh, well, I'm just doing raid stuff to get raid gear to do the raid easier, and I don't really even care about the raid, so why am I playing this? And that was it. Division, I really like the setting. I really like the world, and it feels good to play co-op. It feels much better. The co-op function in this works better for me than Destiny.
It's really seamless. Yeah, it works. It's just like lickety split.
And also just because like it just feels like you're working together more, and like your abilities complement each other.
Yeah, we
more.
didn't really talk about like. You're right. There is a little bit of like MOBA-ness in this, where like because some of the stuff that you get, like I have a turret that I can throw down, and,
which is really cool. But like I don't want that on my character because I'm not interested. But I love like.
But if you team up with me,
we've got a really good situation. I have the. It took me a while to figure out that my healing thing I can shoot it. A distance. But I can shoot that off and heal anyone on my team, and now I just got an upgrade on the mod that lets me resurrect someone from a distance with that. Yeah. So like that's great.
It is.
And and I'm about to get
there is a great team element to it like that. Like
so
everybody
if you can really get everybody,
I
know that the guy I'm playing with, like he prefers to have more of like the tech side, and we got another guy coming in who's going to love. We know he's going to love having like the various cover stuff he can throw down and just sort of like use a light machine gun behind like big cover. Yeah. And like we're going to have a really nice team of 4 once everybody's kind of in place and has picked up the game. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. I think
that'll
the Division
make the Dark Zone fun too.
Yeah, I think the Division is as good as the people you're playing it with in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would agree. And
it's a good solo game. It's not I don't mind it as a solo shooter, but I've had a lot more fun playing with someone.
I would definitely say that it pales in comparison playing by yourself to
if you've got some bros that you like to play shooters with, like I would consider checking it out.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of you're watching each other's backs and fighting through these dungeons and finding cool loot, and the loot is all shared.
And that's really what it is. You're right. It is like a dungeon.
Yeah.
Like they would never call it that.
You wouldn't call it a dungeon because it's not. Yeah, but
if you know game design, it's a dungeon.
Well, even already, like last night, we're catching each other. It's like, oh, there's a treasure chest. I mean, it's a backpack over here. It's a little Diablo to it.
I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this game for a long time.
Most likely,
and it'll be like Destiny has been for the last 9 months, where it's just like one of those kind of landmark games that you're going to compare other games to as you go forward.
The one thing I'm surprised by is I am surprised there's not really any indoor combat.
Yeah.
Like there's no like hallway, like house to house kind of shootouts or anything like that.
Although what I do a lot of times is if I'm having trouble with a battle, I just run in, everybody sees me, and then I retreat out of a hallway. And I just wait for them to run in the hallway and I just mow them down. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what the expansion stuff will be like. Because there's a lot of New York left. So
for sure, and they did. It was kind of funny. Everyone was like reporting Brooklyn's not in the game, blah blah blah.
And then you
tutorial. Start in Brooklyn. I love that. Ubisoft the whole time is just sitting there going,
like,
we want to tell them so bad, but we'll wait. We're going to troll everybody, and that's exactly what they did. So, my game eval hopefully next Tuesday. That's probably best case scenario, I'm saying, because I want to spend some time in the Dark Zone. Hopefully Matt and I can maybe jump in. We're both playing PS4 and play together. Maybe I even jump on. A lot of you sifters have friended me in the last couple weeks on PlayStation Network, so maybe we can get together and go into the Dark Zone together and get each other's backs. So we're going to go to our trailer of the week right now. As always, start getting your questions in now so that we can kind of sort through them while the trailer is playing, and we can answer them right when we come back, so we don't have that weird, awkward thing where we're both staring at like our phones or our iPads looking for questions. So get the questions in right now.
At least for the first question.
Yeah, exactly. The trailer of the week this week is Mirror's Edge Catalyst Combat trailer. They put out 2 trailers this week on the same day, at the same time, actually. One was based on movement. The other was based on combat. I chose the combat version because I just like it more and it's more exciting. So let's roll it. All right, so there was one great question in the chat before we even asked for questions, and that is from DragonSlayer91. What happens if you are a PC gamer who has never played Destiny? What will I think of this game? Do you like grinding for loot?
Yeah, do you grinding for loot, and do you like cover shooters?
Yeah, that's the question you have to ask yourself, because the game, it is really repetitive. Like, there's like a few mission types. So a lot of it comes down to how much do you enjoy the gunplay, because there is a lot of it.
Yeah, the gunplay, if you don't like that kind of the pop and stop, Uncharted Gears of War style gameplay, like, there's nothing here for you.
Yeah, and if you don't like grinding, there's really nothing for you. You probably would hate
you really better enjoy like that feeling of like, oh my god, what is something awesome in this box?
Yeah.
No.
Or what am I going to get?
Look for the next box, you know?
Right, or what am I going to get when I kill this boss? You know, if you don't get like a charge inside you whenever you're fighting like a boss, wondering what you're going to get when you kill him, I would probably steer clear.
You got to love loot.
Yeah, because it is really a loot-driven game, but there's, it's also the loot drives all these other intricate systems. There's a lot of depth to it, honestly. I mean, a lot of menus depth, I guess. It's the best way to put it.
Yeah, deep menus. Like, also, pro tip, if you just hold the options button, you go straight to the inventory.
Yeah. I mean, they do a good job wrangling all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's still a little confusing.
There's a little bit, but there's I mean,
it's like for grenades.
I don't want to rip on Ubi, but it's like there's a surprising amount of thought put into this game for a Ubi game.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
A lot of times you see them kind of like just sort of going through the motions and putting out the next Ubisoft game.
Yeah.
Capital T-U-G.
Yeah.
But like this one, like clearly, like they went through focus testing. They learned from the
see
betas. They improved stuff. I mean,
the map is great. The way the mission objectives are all laid out is great, because mission or objectives are kind of classified by like the 3 disciplines in your base. And so if you want to build one particular arm of your base, like whether it be medic or tech or whatever, you can just go out and do those missions that are tagged for that arm of your base. So let's see, what else? Can we friend you on Xbox, Shane, from Ryan117 Smith? Yes, you can. I'm Dinfire on Xbox Live, just like everywhere else, literally everywhere else. The only place I am not Dinfire is League of Legends, and there I am the real Dinfire. Friend me anywhere. I'll accept invites from all you guys. All this talking's got me all choked up, Matt.
Here's one, W. Matthew. You talked about a bit earlier, do you think E3 can adapt, or do you think PAX and Gamescom will replace it?
Oh, E3 will adapt. E3's not going away. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's like, they'll figure it out. They'll make it work. I would say, in reference to that question, though, I would say that stuff like PAX and things like that have taken a little bit of the thunder away from E3.
Yeah.
I think, just the fact that you asked that question shows that it's taken some thunder away, because I feel like 5 or 6 years ago, no one would even mention that. Could a consumer event take anything away from E3? And now it's a viable question to ask. These consumer-focused events, and it's not. And that's the thing too. Like, these events are consumer-focused from top to bottom. Like, E3 is a press event or an industry event, and it's catered that way. The way it's set up, the way the booths are set up, the way the floor plan is, like, it's all made that way for the press to go and do their jobs and for business people to go and do their jobs. You go and look at PAX. Like, it's more of like PAX is more of like a flea market, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, it's more of like a community type thing. There's not like stuff kind of sectioned away and like, here's where all the booths are, here's where you eat. Everything's kind of mingled together.
And like there's a whole section of booths like way up at the top of the convention center that you might never even see if you don't know there's an escalator there.
Yep, and then there's places where you can just go play, like tabletop games. Like,
beanbag chairs along the halls where you're supposed to just sit down and play your 3DS. You know? So it's a good atmosphere, but it's not a business convention.
Right, and if E3 wants to change and be more consumer friendly, they're going to have to look at the stuff that PAX does and make adjustments accordingly, because PAX is getting it right, people. There's a reason those things sell out in like a day every single time.
An hour.
Because it's fun. You go there. I mean, I love PAX. Like,
PAX is, of all the different conventions that we used to cover and I've covered, like PAX is the only one I think I would go to on my own.
Oh, for sure. Like, I walk into PAX and you're like, my people. Like, you feel it. It's like when a Christian goes to church and they walk in, they're like, here's all the people who believe the same stuff I do. That's what PAX is for me. Like, I go in there and I'm like, I can relate to all these people in here. And it's like, you go to E3 and there's stodgy business people walking around in suits, and then you have like the corny booth like, E3 feels like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in a lot of ways.
E3
it's
is
like,
Vegas.
It's like this spectacle that like you feel a little bit like detached from, but in the same time you have to be completely embedded in it. Mm-hmm. At PAX, you just feel like you're home, basically, and you're hanging with your bros.
Home is where they know you.
Yeah, exactly. And so if E3 wants to start changing its tact, that's the type of stuff it's going to have to look at to make a change.
Especially if they want to court like the YouTube like influencers,
and if they want
who are going to respond more to that.
Because we're assuming that doing a public day means people will want to go. I mean, that's not a certainty.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll tell you this much, people. E3 is hard to get to and get it. I mean, it's a commitment.
It's also expensive.
Very
like
expensive.
all the hotels downtown jack up the rates, and the parking is like $25. Like
that's the thing is like how many people are going to travel to come to one day.
That's what I'm saying. Is there's no guarantee that even works.
Yeah, well, it's because like it's like doing that at like the Tokyo Game Show is another thing because like you can get almost anywhere. You can get to Tokyo from almost anywhere in Japan in a day.
On a train,
a train.
With no car.
Because the transit system supports it.
Yep.
And we don't really have that
well,
here
actually, LA is better now.
They're getting there. The gold line's open, the purple line's coming. So probably in like, 3 to 4 years, you'll be able to like get a hotel like down near Santa Monica and just take the purple line all the way down Wilshire to
the purple line might be doing that in the next couple of months, I think.
Purple line, I live next to the purple line construction, and that's not actually supposed to open until like 2021.
Well, I know the trains that go through West LA open in May.
That's Gold, yeah. Oh. I think Gold Line is opening all the way.
Gotcha. But that'll take you downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
like,
you could go from Santa Monica to downtown.
It's finally viable now in the next few years to stay various places further to the west of downtown and take public transit in, which was literally not an option before.
Yeah. E3 will have to make, I guess the bottom line is E3 will have to make some adjustments if it wants to be a consumer-focused event. It can't just be like, we're going to open the door to these people now and it'll become a smashing success. They have to do something different.
What was it?
Here's one from Vinuraba, one of our weekly streamers. Good to see you, bro. You're in here almost every week. Oh no, I scrolled past. I lost him.
Is that the Witcher 3 question?
No, the question about your definition of
the Witcher 3
indie games. Oh, okay. Oh, here it is. Under Matt's definition of an indie game, would you classify Witcher 3 as an indie game since it was self-published by CD Projekt Red on PC?
I guess that kind of depends on where, it is an independent game in the sense that someone funded it entirely by themselves, but then so is EA. I think CD Projekt Red may have crossed the line into a major publisher by being like the predominant publisher of like Eastern Europe at this point. But technically, in the same way that like Star Wars Episode 1 is an indie movie, Witcher 3 is an independent game. No one other than them was telling them what to do or giving them the money.
Right. Don't you think that's a little weird, though?
No, I mean that's.
Do you think that makes your definition of indie game a little?
No, because that's literally the definition of indie game. If you want to talk about a smaller budgeted game that doesn't sell for full price, you need to come up with another word.
Okay. All right. Here's one from Twitchy Jeff. What TV do you play your PS4 on, Shane? Still a Panasonic Plasma VT50, 240 hertz. I love it.
I think I have a VT65.
Yeah, mine's a 65 as well. I love it. The 3D on the TV is mind-blowing.
VT50, yeah. I think I have the exact same TV then.
Yeah, the number doesn't designate the size.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the model. You were talking about the model number.
Yeah. I love it, man. And the 3D on the thing is freaking amazing. I have this 3D Blu-ray called like Under the Sea or something. And, people always say that like 3D on TV sucks. Man, I'm telling you, the 3D on my Panasonic TV will blow your freaking mind. Like, there's this one part in Under the Sea where there's a grouper, and a grouper is like a fish that's like 10 feet long and just huge. Literally, there is a grouper floating in the living room, and its face comes right up to your face, and you can see little tiny fish swimming in and out of its mouth. It is so realistic that it scared my wife. She was so scared of it that she went to pet the fish. So people, when they talk smack about 3D, like, I just don't think they've had a good 3D TV. Because if you have a good one and you have a great 3D Blu-ray that was actually filmed for 3D, it can be mind-blowing.
I haven't seen that on Blu-ray, but I did see a preview for it at a 3D IMAX thing, and I know what you're talking about because at a certain point there's a shot where like it's showing like a shark but in like a minnow swarm.
Yeah.
And so there's all these fish like right here while you're trying to look at the shark. And in the theater, I actually went like that.
Dude, it's incredible.
To swipe the fish out of my way because at a certain point your brain just believes it.
3D can work. The problem is there just isn't enough content. People gave up on it too quick.
Also, I think it works better in like a documentary setting like that than a narrative one.
Yeah. Questions are flowing in.
Lestivet asks what my favorite Saturn game is, and have I played Shining Force 3? I have played Shining Force 3. I own it on Saturn. It's fine. I was annoyed at the time that we only got part 1 of 3 or whatever they were. My favorite Saturn game is Panzer Dragoon Saga, which is also my second favorite game of all time.
Panzer Dragoon Saga for me as well. I mean, is there really a question?
Not really.
I mean, it is the best Saturn game.
Yeah,
There's a reason it goes for like $400.
There's a lot of good stuff on the Saturn, but mostly import, and very little on par with Panzer Dragoon Saga.
There's so many questions.
How much are apartments in LA? You don't want to know.
You really don't. They're not as bad as San Francisco, though.
No, what was it? Like the 3rd or 4th highest apartment rental market right now is Oakland.
Yeah, no.
Because
everyone
Oakland
overflows from San Francisco.
Used to be like no one lived in it. Oakland was locals, and now it's like everybody's got to live there to commute in.
The thing with LA apartments is it depends on where. Like the closer you get to the ocean, the closer you get to the west side, the more expensive it is generally.
Yeah, or the further up in the Hollywood Hills you get.
Yeah, well, that's just where the rich people live. Yeah. Period. But I mean, as a general rule, on the west side, for a 2-bedroom apartment that isn't ancient and has been remodeled in the last 10 or 15 years, probably about $3,000 a month, $3,200 a month, something like that.
Yeah, Dragon Force would be my number 2 on the Saturn. And can someone please do a modern HD remake of that, please?
Here's one from Big Ass Boy. I like that one. If I purchase a gifted subscription now and save it for after the price increase, will it still be usable? Yes, it will.
Ooh.
Your gifted subscription is good for a subscription no matter what the price of the subscription is. So
stock up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could conceivably buy like 10 now and
I did that for Xbox Live Gold at one point.
It's 40. There's a deal on Sifted today, Xbox Live for $40, people, if you need to renew your Xbox Live. Let's see. This is from NeoFan87. Have you guys any comments on the whole Coleco Chameleon fiasco? Do you think retro game consoles are worth releasing or making in the first place? Yes, they're definitely worth making. They're not worth making when they're bullshit. I mean, that whole thing was a ruse. Do you know the story with that, Matt?
Mm-mm.
Basically, they were making an all-in-one console that ran I can't remember all the platforms, but
Mm-hmm.
And then they had bought these old Atari Jaguar cases. I guess that they just had they found some manufacturing company that just had skids of them. And so they bought it. And so everybody knew all along that, ultimately it was going to be built into these Atari Jaguar cases or whatever. But what happened was they stuck they went to a show and said, this is our final hardware version. And it turned out it was just literally a Nintendo console inside, Nintendo hardware inside the Jaguar shell. And they were running, I think it was Super NES games or whatever, and people busted them at the show. We're like, dude, this is totally bullcrap. And so it got back to the holding company that holds the Coleco brand, and then yesterday or the day before, Coleco completely dropped the project and said, we don't want anything to do with it. We wish them luck, but we don't want anything to do with it anymore.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I think retro consoles are great. I love them. All-in-one consoles are great. I have no issue with them as long as they're legit. And that project was not legit at all.
Also, if you can get the sound emulation right, which seems to be a big problem for the Genesis retro consoles. That's really fun. I bet they get the Jaguar casing because that casing mold has been used for industrial equipment and dental x-ray machines for years and years. So that's probably just readily available.
Let's see. Playing any good mobile games? There's no such thing.
Oh,
kidding. I honestly don't play mobile games at all.
I play Marvel Puzzle Quest, and I did play Lara Croft Go, but I finished it.
I'm not really on the go anymore.
That's about it, really.
I don't take public transit anymore at all.
I played You Must Build a Boat. I really like that, but it's I don't really play mobile stuff, especially because there's some mobile stuff that people would say oh, you got to play this mobile game, you got to play this and I'm like, okay, I'll get to it, and then there's a PC version, and I'm like, well, what was it? Abby told me to play Rust Lake Hotel on, so that was great, and that 2 days later, it came out on PC for 99 cents. I'm like, oh, I'll just play it on PC,
Yeah.
If I can play it on a sorry, mobile people. If I can play it on a real platform, I will.
Yeah, I don't travel as much as I used to.
I like buttons.
I mean, where I live is 2 miles from our studio here, so I don't have to take like public transit to get to. I just drive here all the time. So if that's the only reason I would ever play mobile games, if I had to travel.
I play mobile games.
And then I would just use my 3DS or my Vita. So
my mobile game playing has definitely gone down since I don't travel as much anymore.
Yeah.
For work and stuff.
Okay, we'll answer 2 more. Let's see if there are 2 more.
I like that. Ryan 117 Smith, no Nintendo handheld in the future. What happens to Pokemon?
Maybe they'll finally make a good console version.
I think Pokemon becomes whatever Pokemon Go is.
Yeah.
I think it mutates into some kind of mobile phenomenon.
Well, it'll become a mobile game.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really need to play Pokemon. There's no advantage to playing Pokemon on a handheld versus mobile. There's
really.
none. There's none. I guess traveling around the overworld, a D-pad's better than using touch control. Not really. I mean, you can just touch where you want to go, and he just goes there.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the one Nintendo series that there's really no advantage to playing it on a handheld versus a handset. So that's probably where it's headed. We have anything else? Somebody just said, I pay $1,800 a month for a 1-bedroom in West LA next to Santa Monica. That's exactly where I live. That's exactly where we are right now, by the way.
Pretty much, yeah.
We're in Culver City. We're basically in West LA on the border of Santa Monica. So maybe you could come by sometime in the studio. You could hang out while we tape.
One X Solo, Dark Souls 3, either of you? Yeah, of course.
I'm going to give it a try. We'll see how that goes.
I'll probably get... I hope I have time to get through it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a crowded spring, but... No, I'm in for Dark Souls 3, no question.
Yeah.
We are. Maybe he's too soft for Dark Souls 3. I'm not too soft for Dark Souls 3.
Someone else saying hi from Santa Monica. Wow, all you sifters in West LA. You're so close. Maybe we should do the quiz show and have people in person. Have you guys come into the studio and war it out a little bit. But, all right, that's it. We could sit and answer questions all damn night, but this show has already reached its 3-hour peak.
Damn.
Another 3-hour episode of GameFace. I saw some people when we started the stream, they were saying it was like already 2 in the morning. So if you guys stuck with us till 5, you the man or the woman. You could be a woman. I actually don't know still if there are any females on Sifted.
I don't know.
And I would say, like, if you're a female, put it in the comments, but that would be a really bad decision. So
yeah, if you're out here on this battlefield, hold up a giant flag that says "shoot me."
Because we don't collect like people's personal information when they subscribe or register for Sifted. We don't know anything about anybody. We don't know what their real names are really or anything. Like we don't get any of that data. So I honestly have no idea if there's a single female subscriber. So
I would guess there are some.
There might be. If any of you, if there are,
I wouldn't advertise that information. If I were them.
If there are any females who are watching this,
women maybe.
Yeah, women, whatever. Send me a private message and let me know that you're there. I just was curious. I have no idea if there are any females on.
Yeah, we have no idea of demographics really for the site.
Nope.
We assume people are older
because we don't need it because we're not selling the data to anybody. So. Yeah, every
Because-
other website knows everything about you, but Sifted, we don't know jack.
We have no idea.
Probably good.
You could all be the same person. We don't know.
Yep.
Just one guy subscribing over and over.
Yeah. So as always, thanks. It seems like there are more people on our chat than ever. Seems like the show is growing on Twitch, which is great. I just turn on notifications for new subscribers to our Twitch channel, and literally like all day, there's just new ones rolling in. So definitely the audience is growing here on Twitch, which is great. We're totally fine with everybody watching it here for free on Twitch. Hopefully, maybe someday you eventually decide to subscribe. If not, no big deal. Enjoy it. That's what we're here for. So, once again, thanks everybody for watching and tuning in. We'll be back again next Wednesday, I think. I think Wednesday's actually working out good now.
Yeah, it gives you time to play the new release.
Yeah, because, like, for instance, if Matt doesn't happen to get, like, an early copy of something, it'll give him at least a day to play a game before we come in here and talk about them. So I think we may stick in this Wednesday for a little while here. It seems to be working out really well. So, as always, thanks, everybody. Everybody have a great night, morning, evening, dusk, whatever it is to you. GameFace is up and out.